the people that aren't necessarily criminals, because we are talking about going after the people that were the criminal illegal aliens, the people that are a threat to our community. I don't think that someone that writes an op-ed for their student newspaper is necessarily a criminal or a threat. However, in this case, yes, 110%. This is someone that, has a legal status, and regardless of the process of trying to get legal status here in the country, has broken the law and has done so in a manner that was so reckless it caused the loss of life. That is significant. That is enormous. The amount of damage that this has caused to so many people's lives and everything that's going to happen in the future, not to mention cutting short the potentiality of that individual. This is a crime. When you're talking about deporting the illegal immigrants that commit crimes, this is a great example of exactly who they were talking about. Ta-da! Yes, ICE should get involved. Yes, this is an issue. Yes, if you're here illegally and you continue to commit crimes, you should know that your name is going to be on the top of the list. Yes, 110%. I was glad to see this go viral on social media yesterday. This absolutely should happen.
They got a picture of him, his face blocked out because he's a minor still, but he's getting out of here. And if you didn't have the Trump administration, this would have been the scenario. You have a DA that would have allowed him out on probation and a president that probably would have allowed him to stay here. That guy would have been living among us on our streets, threatening our kids when they were trying to drive home. Thank God for DJT and ICE and the good people there getting this guy out.
And for as many times as the listeners to our show have heard me take shots at Trump, at the administration, at their immigration policies, this one is a good job. This one is a gold star. Absolutely. And I know this is going to hurt some people's feelings. I appreciate the fact that they swooped up the family in the process as well. The entire family is being held for detention. Yes, I am okay with that because it is a child inside of it. Do I think that if the entire family is here illegally and dad does something bad that everybody goes? I don't know. I want to see what the status is and what everybody else in the family is doing. However, when it comes to the idea of a child, the parents are going to be swept up in it because it is a minor. Parents are swept up in decisions that minors make that are citizens here. And so same thing, I believe, holds true. And I think that we are being consistent. So yes, good job. Now listen to, hey, all of you that think that I always sit here and I complain about Donald Trump, hit the recorder or hit the record on something or just record this right now. Good job on Donald Trump. Good job on the Trump administration. Good job on ICE. Nice job on this one. I support this. See? Not always a bad guy. Just every day that ends in Y. It's normally the time. But yeah, this is a good thing.
Text messages coming in 8422. Is he going to be deported or go to prison where he belongs? No, he's deported.
Deported.
And look, I get the frustration on this because people will go, well, he should pay a penalty and lose his freedom. Okay?
Yep. And I have that emotion too. I feel that there should be some sort of punishment. There should be some sort of consequence greater than get out. But continue.
Oh, and you have to look at the cost to taxpayers to do that. So if we house him here in America and make him pay, let's say, 25 years before he's then deported, so he has to sit in jail. We, as the taxpayers, I think are paying, it's $40,000 a year per taxpayer, if I remember correctly. Could be wrong on that number, but $40,000 per year per inmate that taxpayers are going to have to pay for this guy to sit here. Would I like him to receive some justice, lose some freedom? Absolutely, but should we have to pay for it? Let's just get him out of here. Unfortunately, Colombia is probably going to let him go. But that's now Colombia's issue to deal with. He wants to drive around and be stupid down there, go 90 miles an hour and kill people. That's now Colombia's problem.
Yeah, and for me, and as difficult as this is, there is a line between this behavior and Lake and Riley's killer, because there is a whole lot more intent and a whole lot more predatory behavior and a whole lot more evil wrapped up in the individual murder and what Lake and Riley went through.
Down.
Yeah, that's different. That's where we keep him here for a while to make sure the dude stays in prison. In this case, yeah, it is difficult. I don't think it's necessarily the best punishment per se, but yes, this is a good example in my mind of the idea that you're a criminal, you need to get the hell out. And yes, because you did it as a minor, this does include your parents. I am sorry about that, but these are the decisions. And yeah, every once in a while, yeah, I can agree with the Trump administration, but this may be the only time in the next couple of months. I'm just
like I said, the last true independent pluralist in Colorado. Yeah. Amy Padden serving in office till January of 2029. She's got to go, guys. I don't know if a recall is likely. Those are really hard to do. So you in Arapahoe County Judicial District 18, you used to have George Brockler. Then you had John Kellner. Now you got progressive, justice-minded Amy Padden, and you're stuck with her for 4 more years.
Yeah.
So,
and if you don't think if you don't think a recall can be accomplished, but you're angry about this, this is one that you save. And during the press conferences, during the town halls, during the meetings, when she's coming out and talking about other charges, this needs to be brought up over and over again. This should be, if you don't think you can get the recall, but you need to try to, what I'm saying is, if you want to kind of change the direction the river is flowing, this is a good dam. This is a good stop to keep bringing this up and say, hang on a second, you decided that someone that was driving impaired, underage, without a license, doing 90 in a neighborhood and killed someone deserves probation. Tell us how you're actually protecting our community. Keep coming back to that because you might be able to change the charging decisions. You might be able to change the idea of what sentences they go after if you continue to bring this up, because sometimes this public pressure can change their decision-making process. So if you don't think a recall can be accomplished, this may be a really, really sharp tool in your toolbox. So hang on to it.
Well said. All right, join the conversation. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Again, we're talking ICE Denver posting on X that the 16-year-old citizen of Colombia that took their parents' car unlicensed, here illegally, uninsured, crashes 90 miles an hour into a young lady returning home from work, killing her instantly. The DA of the 18th Judicial District giving him no jail time, just probation. ICE, on the other hand, sweeping him up. Got a beautiful picture of him standing there with 2 ICE agents in cuffs saying he is in ICE custody pending an immigration hearing. He gone. All right, you're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. The text messages are real hot on this, so let's continue the conversation. People are angry. This 15-year-old here in Colorado, now 16, gets in his parents' car, takes it without permission. That leaves the mom off the hook, by the way, which is kind of crazy in this legal situation. Hits a young lady named Caitlin Weaver. She's returning home from work. He's going 90 in a 45, and the video is terrible. You can find it online. But it essentially T-bones her, kills her instantly. And the DA of the 18th Judicial District, named Amy Padden, gives this illegal immigrant who took a car, who is unlicensed, who doesn't have any insurance, who's driving 90 miles an hour, who commits murder with his car, or at least vehicular homicide, ends up getting probation. Well, ICE saying, we got him, he's out of here. And people going, well, what a tragedy for the family. This is 8422. You come to this country, you commit a crime like this, you should have to pay the price by our legal system. But part of the challenge here is, all right, you're going to require American taxpayers to now feed and house the guy for 25, 30 years. And then we'll kick him out. And I understand the frustration that he's not going to get justice in our justice system, and he deserves justice. In fact, you know, he should get what George was able to get for the drunk driver that killed the father.
Yeah.
He's taking his kids to get some popsicles, 200 plus years, because he was able to get a first-degree murder. So George delivering
George
in his
filed
district
charges, oddly enough,
Yeah, right.
to punish the criminal. That's a weird concept. Weird concept.
So a good DA is able to get serious justice, but you know, you get this guy now out of here. The American taxpayer doesn't have to feed and house the guy. People going, well, he's just probably going to sneak back in. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's always a risk, but
if he comes back in,
we don't have to deal with him anymore.
Yeah,
he's gone.
And if he does come back in, it kicks in felony charges. So we can actually then keep him behind bars for longer, because once you're deported and then returned, because the original crossing is normally just misdemeanor, low level stuff, but deporting and then coming back kicks it up to a felony thanks to changes in the laws. So we would have more teeth in it. And I understand. I have empathy for the individuals out there, because I feel it too, that this kid should have been held responsible for his crimes. Problem is, the DA gave him a pass in my mind. Yeah, he got probation. I'm viewing it as a pass, and that's how I'm going to describe it, even though it's inaccurate. So the DA gave him a pass. We can't go back and charge him. So the idea of, don't we want him held responsible for our laws and committing the crimes? Yes, that is true, but unfortunately that goal can't happen. We can't get there at this point because of who the DA is and what Amy decided to do. So the best next choice in my mind is deportation. At least get him out of our society if we're not going to hold him responsible for the crimes. This crime is so severe in my mind. At least he's out. Just like yesterday, I was criticized for letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. Kind of the same thing here. Are we letting the perfect, getting him in prison, be the enemy of the good, just getting him removed from our society so he can't hurt anybody else?
And the cost to incarcerate him in the state of Colorado, I was low on that. It's $56,000 a year. So you put him in for 25, 30 years. He probably serves half of that. $56,000 a year times, 12 years or something. Let's see, 56,000 times 12. That's $672,000. That doesn't include the cost to the attorneys and all that stuff. So you're looking at maybe $750,000 to get justice, or you get him out of here. He's now Columbia's problem. And ultimately, vengeance is the Lord's, God says. So maybe that's where you'll land on that. But thank God we got ICE getting him out. Right, at least somebody's doing something. At least somebody is getting this guy out of here.
And if we had to pick, yes, prison is the best choice. But if we had to choose, if we were on Let's Make a Deal, and there's Monty Hall telling us the 3 curtains, and we missed the first curtain, which is put the kid in prison, and behind the other 2 curtains, we have walk around on probation or get deported. Which curtain you pick?
That's a great point.
I'm picking the deportation curtain. That's where I am.
Let's go to the phone lines. Ron Greeley. Good morning, Ron. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Morning, gents. Hey, I'm just baffled as to how this district attorney is able to get away with this. Their logic is not that, and they should either. How do you get rid of a district attorney? Can you do that?
I imagine you could recall. Let me see if I can pull up her website, because I went to her website. She may not have it up anymore, obviously, but I went to her website when this all first broke, and it was all progressive justice, restorative justice, the hearts and feelings of the perpetrators. I mean, the voters knew what they were getting. It was not a shock, and that's exactly what she's delivering.
Yeah, and Ron, the recall is a long process and a difficult process, and
she made it private. She took her website down.
See, there you go. Now, here's the thing. This is what I'm talking about.
Dude.
Ron, when I talked about Ron earlier, that you use this as that sharp stick to continue to poke her, if she's made the website private, that shows the blowback that they're getting. So I understand wanting to remove her, but I think that the process, the amount of time, the amount of effort, and the amount of money, and again, you're not also assured of who you're going to get on the other end. The best case, at least right now, would be to keep poking her with a sharp stick. If you get a second or third case like this, now I think you can get a really big groundswell for a recall. This might be just a little bit too early for it, but I think based on the fact that Jeff's saying her website went private, this is a sharp stick you can use to try and change the direction.
So,
but it's got to try.
Because I know how to go back and find websites that have been taken down, here is what you have with Amy Padden. Democrat for Arapahoe County District Attorney. She is committed to reducing over-incarceration. Prison is not the only option available when the state seeks justice for victims and addresses criminal behavior. She wants to protect vulnerable populations and address systemic inequities.
Now, I'm curious, is there any legal repercussion, or what the family that are victims of this, do they have any grounds? This is not justice in any, it disgusts me, and I feel so sorry for that family that this is allowed. I just cannot understand this absurdity. I'm shocked.
Well, and it wasn't just her. Remember, a judge had to agree to this as well. So you have a very broken system. And Ron, I talk with law enforcement who will tell me to my face how frustrated they are about all the work that they'll do, the case that they'll build, and then you have a DA like this and a judge that then lets these guys out. Our law enforcement, our brothers and sisters in blue are demoralized over this type of activity.
Do you remember, this goes all the way back to the 80s, Batman, Jack Nicholson made the statement as the Joker. This town needs an enema.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, guys. You guys are doing great. Thank you so much for the time.
Hey, thanks, Ron. I appreciate
really great call. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah,
Ron's line will be open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Go ahead, Bill.
This is the thing that keeps coming back to me, and this is probably why I get so angry about this one, is that Jeff and I both have young teenage daughters that drive them home from work.
Dude, that was going through my exact mind.
And what I keep looking at is, what do I think of the district attorney that comes to me and says, I know that your daughter's life is gone. I know that hole in your family can never be replaced, and we think the best course of action is probation. I am going to have to restrain myself to not leap across the table and choke the life out of the district attorney.
But in this case, they actually told the family they weren't going to do
Yes,
this.
that's the thing. Is they said
And
they
then
weren't
all
going
of a
to,
sudden
and
they
then it
shocked
shows
the
up.
family with it.
Exactly, and they show up and they make the deal. That that there's an idea where you want to talk about revenge killing. Yes,
Well, and-
because the district attorney and the system has told you that basically, again, this is not the real what it's doing, but it's saying that the value of the life is infinitesimal. That taking of the life is not significant enough to even warrant a restraint on the individual's freedom that deprived your daughter of breath.
Yep.
That there's not anything the system should or can do to help you or to punish this person, even go so far as just to even slightly restrict their freedom. That's crazy. And you got to keep
And
the
if you
pressure on
remember,
this DA. This
this
is stupid.
initially was prosecuted under John Kellner.
Yeah.
John is going to prosecute
Yes.
these guys, right? And even
Yeah,
if
it's
they
gonna
do a
hold them
plea
accountable.
deal,
Yes.
it's going to be held accountable. Then you get a new DA, and
Yeah.
lo and behold, it's all
Yeah, things
gloved,
changed.
This perpetrator is handled with
And the thing is,
soft
and the
gloves.
question that you got to ask is again, if you're pressuring this DA, if you're in this community and you're dealing with them, go after the phrases about restorative justice. Talk about who's going to restore this girl's family. How is this restorative? What is the focus on the victims as well? There are two parties in every crime. There is the person committing the crime, and there is also the victim. So you want to question priorities. You want to question on what's most important. Are we looking at making sure the community is safe and that justice is done, or are we looking at making sure we consider why the crime is taking place, and we need to understand why they're inflicting the violence on the individuals in the community that the DEA has vowed to protect? That's a question you got to ask, and keep pushing this one, because the decision that her office has made has told you that an individual, and we can put the idea of being illegal or legal aside, because at the core, this is about someone made a decision that directly, not inebriated at the time, made a sober decision that put somebody else's life in danger, took someone's life. They could have reasonably guessed they were putting other people in danger. The horrible consequence happened, and they're not going to hold them responsible. That's significant. You've got to keep using this sharp stick to poke them. You've got to.
All right, we'll continue. We got You Choose the News coming up. I want to talk to you real briefly about our friends over at the Colorado Farm Bureau. Whether you pulled out your skis or snowmobiles this last winter, it was a great year for winter fun. But the snow means even more to Colorado agriculture, and I want you to know that our state's farmers and ranchers are doing their part to protect our future water resources. The people of Colorado agriculture always have conservation, efficiency, reuse top of mind when it comes to water use. As the metro area continues to grow, the Colorado Farm Bureau leads talks with state policymakers about preserving water for all areas of the state as pressure on the water system grows. Look, it's going to take all of us to find a solution, and my friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau are leaders in water conservation and water policy. They understand how to balance water for crops and water for families, and they're doing more with less. You can do your part. I'm a member. Join them and become a member today. Go to coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com to join. All right, we'll continue. We got You Choose the News coming up. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, when Bill and I go out and do our live broadcasts, this portion of the show is talked about more than any other, and people love it. And when we don't do it, we hear about it.
Yes,
it's time for You Choose the News.
Yes, it's Friday, so that means it is the loser edition. Those stories that were not deemed worthy of our attention get a second shot at glory. Here we come.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
Loser!
Let's go. Loser! You're a loser!
The Losers Club.
Bunch of losers.
You're such a loser.
You made me feel like a loser!
She's a loser.
You are such a loser.
Loser.
Yes, stories that we were not told to pay attention to earlier in the week get a second shot at glory. Jeff and Blake have a second bite at the apple. It's what we call the loser edition of You Choose the News. You know how this works. America's favorite fake radio news game show, scouring interwebs, dumb stories, and more ridiculous headlines, and no one's paying attention because the people in charge don't wake up until 7 o'clock. So when left unsupervised, just like teenagers, weird things happen. Okay, now, Jeff Hunt is in the studio. Blake Olson is in the newsroom. Gentlemen, here are the stories that we passed over earlier this week. Headline number 1, more Krampus than Santa. Headline number 2, poop for the planet. Headline number 3, hide and seek. And headline number 4, efficiency or contamination. Mr.
Well,
Hunt.
I'm going to be doing ranch work this weekend. Let's start with poop.
Yeah,
for the planet.
poop for the planet. New research is showing that penguin poop might actually be super, super cool. Cool? Yes, cool, as in cooling. New science hippie research shows that penguin poop in Antarctica is an important source of ammonia aerosol particles that help drive the formation and persistence of lower clouds. That helps cool the climate in the area by reflecting back some of the oncoming sunlight back to space. Yes, the amount of just huge amounts of poop from the penguins create a lot of ammonia particles, and they interact with sulfur-based aerosols from ocean algae to start a chemical chain reaction that forms billions and billions of tiny particles that serve as the nuclei for water vapor droplets. That creates the low-hanging clouds, protecting the ice and keeping the planet a little bit cooler than it could have been. Remember, penguins are aquatic, and they evolved from flying birds about 60 million years ago, shortly after the age of the dinosaurs. But right now, it is their poop that is the most valuable. Yeah, so they're pooping to save the planet.
I feel like we talk about that subject a lot here. Don't you?
There may be a theme going on. Just it may be.
We're all still middle school boys
when
at
we talk about Jeff and I being left unsupervised, there's kind of a thread there. And acting like teenagers. Yes, absolutely. You should see the stories I don't choose.
Oh, I can only
Oh, yes,
imagine.
there are a few. All right. Okay, my friend, your choice this morning, sir. More Krampus than Santa, hide and seek, or efficiency or contamination?
Ooh, efficiency and contamination.
Yeah,
Or
is this
contamination.
efficiency or is it contamination? The Dutch Food and Consumer Product Safety Authority is asking a very popular candy company about why their gummies recently tested positive for cannabis. Now, it seems efficient if you're trying to get high, but if you're giving to kids, not so much. This is the Haribo, the very, very popular gummy bear company.
Yeah.
Yes.
The ones that made the really funny ads.
Yes,
too.
the one that makes it bad. Yeah,
The little adults that talk like kids.
Yep, exactly. Maybe they were taking these funny gummies because what had happened is one of the shipments had been contaminated with cannabis inside. Haribo has warned consumers not to eat the 1,000-gram bags of Happy Cola Fizz. Those are the basic little Coca-Cola bags, but these were only distributed to the Netherlands. So you can't go run out to Safeway today if you're getting that and just say, hey, I can get my
That's
edibles
not by
cheap.
accident.
No, it's not going to happen at all. The company encourages customers to not return the product and to not use the product, return it to the stores, or send it directly back to the factory
I
for
thought
a
you were going to say
refund.
to the drug dealer.
Yeah, or I was just saying, or just keep it and enjoy your weekend.
Yeah.
Choices, people, choices. So,
Golly.
yeah, I know. Alrighty. Mr. Hunt, the final choice this morning, sir, that we passed over earlier this week, more Krampus than Santa or hide and seek?
Let's do hide and seek.
Yeah, hide and seek. The Cirilli police recently responded to a call in a Lowe's parking lot Sunday evening, reportedly finding disturbance inside one of the display sheds outside the store. Now, in Lowe's, they have those sheds displayed outside near the garden area and stuff. Well, evidently there was noise happening inside one of those sheds, and so they were called for a problem. It was around 5 p.m. in the evening, and witnesses described they thought someone was inside one of the sheds, inside without any clothes on. Yes. They found a naked man inside one of the sheds, let's just say doing his own yard work, pruning the bushes.
It's
making sure the rose is blooming.
Somewhere.
Yes, he was involved in a little bit of a happy time on himself. Yes, they located the suspect.
Man.
Yes, lying on his back, pants around his ankles, and using kind of some Vaseline. I'm just going to say that's as far as we can go. And also, weirdly enough, an electronic device was involved. And because of the time of the morning and FCC regulations, I'm not going to describe any more about what was going on at all. But let's just say it's not for sharing. Yes, exactly. It is absolutely crazy. And the final story that we skipped over this morning, more Krampus than Santa. You may have missed this in the recent testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. You may have heard that Kid Cudi said that Diddy actually used a Molotov cocktail to blow up his car. But in the time, it was the time that during Christmas, Diddy actually broke into Kid Cudi's house, called him, and threatened him, and also opened his kids' Christmas presents. Yes, Diddy went in and opened the family Christmas presents.
What a great guy.
I know. That's just the next level of being a douchebag. All right, everybody. All right, that's it. You choose a news. Back to you.
Friday,
Yes.
you choose a news
Yes, it
loser
is.
edition.
There's a reason we skip over the others.
All right. What are we talking next hour? Oh, we're joined by a futurist. Not going to want to miss it. Jeff and Bill.
KNUS. Well, it's 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Friday, May 30th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Colorado's blue, America's red. It all meets right here on the program where you're invited to be a part of the conversation. Give us a call by joining us at 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson. Science is now pushing the boundaries of human longevity, allowing people to live healthier, longer lives. Can you hack the human lifespan and become a super ager? Futurist Kevin Cirilli is going to take a look at the biotech revolution that's changing how long people live. This is part of the MAHA movement. We'll see.
They're just trying to delay retirement. They're like, no, we can't pay these retirement bills. They can't. Social Security's going bankrupt. If we make everybody live to 100, then we're okay. That's the idea.
And you're going to work to 95.
Exactly. They're trying to extend the amount of time that we have to pay into it.
Jeff and Bill Show.
I know. This is the thing, okay? That we're going to talk to the guy. It's going to be fun. But I'm reminded of, and I'll bring it up again, the Dennis Leary bit that he talked about, people living longer and getting healthy late in life. And he's like, why? Those are the worst years. Those are the fall down the stairs, diaper wearing, have to eat soup years. Why do we need more of those years? If you're going to give me more in my 20s, he's like, I'm all in. But those years, nah, you can have them. I'm like, okay. So, yeah, it's a little cynical, but that's kind of the idea is, do we want these kind of years? But still, I think this is just a scheme to make sure that the Social Security trust fund doesn't go bankrupt. They're just trying to extend the number of years we pay in and then shorten the number of years we pay out.
You got to be a taxpayer as long as possible.
That's exactly it. This is a scheme.
If you're going to live long, you might as well live well. One of those is to have, a nice kitchen. And our friends over at Mountain High Appliance are running a deal right now, extending the Memorial Day deal all the way through June 4th. You can save up to $4,300 during their Memorial Day event on select KitchenAid appliance packages at Mountain High Appliance. Proud to offer KitchenAid, an iconic brand trusted for over 100 years. Don't wait. The deals won't last. When you think appliances, think locally owned. Mountain High Appliance, $4,300 of savings you could get on KitchenAid appliance packages. That is a good deal. All right, now it's time for your 7 a.m. dose of news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
TGIF, good morning, 52 and sunny in Denver. Expecting a high of 82 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
The Senate has chosen not to exercise their powers, and the president absolutely has the right to set the trade agenda for the U.S.
Scott Bessent, DJT's tariff plan has been temporarily reinstated. Thursday, a federal appeals court granted the administration's request to pause a lower court's ruling, i.e. Communist Court and Judge, that blocked most of 47's global tariffs. The U.S. Court of International Nobody Has Ever Heard of Us ruled that an emergency law does not give 47 the authority to impose global tariffs. But Bessent tells the truth.
This administration is committed to fair trade, and we are striking the best deals for the American people, and anything that the courts do to get in the way, both harms the American people in terms of trade and in terms of tariff revenue.
Bessent also says trade talks with China have stalled. He said he thinks there will be more talks in the next few weeks, and there may be at some point a phone call between the president and Chinese President Xi Jinping. And DJT says this morning that they've broken their agreement. Colorado Representatives Gabe Evans and Lauren Boebert praising 47's big, beautiful bill after its narrow passage in the House. During an event at the Colorado State Capitol on Thursday, Boebert said the measure will not cut Medicaid benefits for those who need them.
Waste, fraud, and abuse, improper payments, that is what we are eliminating. We are not eliminating lawful use of Medicaid. This was never supposed to be something that American citizens lived on for their life.
It's illegal immigrants and it's able-bodied, working-aged adults with no dependents who choose not to work, volunteer, or go to school part-time, but that is their choice.
My goodness, the lefties. Wow, they were loud. They had all their microphones out and speakers and whatever, blow torches, flames, who knows. 2 politicians were heckled by about 100 protesters upset by the bill's proposed Medicaid and food stamp cuts.
And they're all boomers, too. If you look at the videos of it. Speaking of retirement, what did you do with your retirement? Heckled Gabe Evans.
Although retiring and becoming a professional heckler, just the idea that you just go around and heckle people at certain organizations, and you could derive a little bit of income just to go there and make a sign and yell at someone. Kind of something up my alley. Yeah, I'll just agnostic politically. I'm not caring. I don't care what event I'm going to. You just want me to go heckle someone? Okay, I can see that.
Gets the blood flowing.
Yes,
a little exercise.
Yes. I was at the grocery store the other day, walking out with this elderly woman, and she's like, and I'm talking to her. She's like, I'm old. It doesn't matter. I don't care what other people think. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get that age. She goes, darling, it's the best thing ever. I'm like, you're my hero.
How old was she?
Oh, she's about 83. Like, you are my hero.
That's great.
I can't wait till I can do that.
She went and got in her car and killed somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
Probably someone to cut him off. There was a reason for
exactly.
it. Yes, yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. All right, this morning in the Oval Office, DJT holding a press conference with Elon on his last day. But 47 says that this is not really the last day because he will always be with us, helping all the way. Elon is terrific, quote unquote. Caroline Levitt says the Doge superstars will continue to work.
Well, the entire cabinet is involved, and I spoke to the president about it this morning, and the entire cabinet understands the need to cut government waste, fraud, and abuse, and each cabinet secretary at their respective agencies is committed to that. That's why they were working hand in hand with Elon Musk, and they'll continue to work with the respective Doge employees who have onboarded as political appointees at all of these agencies. So surely the mission of Doge will continue, and many Doge employees are now political appointees and employees of our government, and the best of my knowledge, all of them intend to stay and continue this important work.
Did you, Blake, see that headline? I think it was from the Babylon Bee that said Elon Musk decides to take on something easier than rooting out corruption in the government, placing human beings on Mars.
That's awesome. That is great. So true. That is so true. Hopefully we'll see a ton of rescissions packages beginning next week. 47 will be in Pittsburgh today to hold his first rally since being reelected. They'll be celebrating the steel industry and a huge merger.
I'm sure you can always find the judge that is insane and lunatic enough in the Democrat Party, a sufficiently communist judge, to rule on anything. So
DJT's ban on international students at Harvard is being blocked by a federal rogue judge. The judge ruled in Boston that she wants to maintain the status quo by allowing Harvard to continue hosting foreign students on visas. Stephen Miller.
Harvard is engaged in illegal and criminal conduct, and a judge is siding with Harvard's right to pad his pockets with foreign cash over the rights of American citizens and the American Constitution. The Democrat Party's philosophy right now is for foreigners everything, for Americans nothing. President Trump is fighting for American workers, for the blue-collar workers, and for the middle class of this country.
And a lawsuit has been filed in Texas in an effort to block a state bill requiring public schools to post the Ten Commandments in every classroom. The bill was passed by Texas lawmakers and is awaiting the signature of Governor Abbott. The ACLU and other civil rights groups, of course, say it violates the long-standing Supreme Court precedent. Whatever. Put the Ten Commandments up there. The Knicks force a Game 6 And Indianapolis tomorrow against the Pacers in the East. The NHL, Edmonton over the Stars in the West. It'll be Florida and Edmonton in the Stanley Cup Finals. 49 in Lone Tree, 50 in Brighton, and 52 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
Job on the Trump administration. Good job on ICE. Nice job on this one. I support this.
I love this guy.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Temperatures will still be a little on the cool side, and there's still enough moisture around for night and morning fog and a few scattered showers and thunderstorms today. Highs mid to upper 60s. Clearing out a bit tonight, lows 40s and lower 50s. Partly cloudy on Friday, warming to near 80 with late day widely scattered thunderstorms. 70s to lower 80s Saturday, a few late day thunderstorms, well into the 80s Sunday with a few thunderstorms late. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free, no obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, science is now pushing the boundaries of human longevity, allowing people to live healthier, longer lives. Can you hack the human lifespan and become a super ager? Then you can pay your Social Security taxes forever. Futurist Kevin Cirilli is taking a look at the biotech revolution that's changing how long people live. Joins us now. I love the title Futurist. That is very cool to have. Kevin, good morning. Thank you for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning. How do we get ourselves names Futurists? What do we have to do? Is there a test? Is there a club we have to join? What do we do?
It's the team. It's my team. I can't take credit for that, but I'm very grateful that they came up with that. I found it Meet the Future to look at some of this stuff because super aging is not just living for a long period of time into your 80s and 90s and beyond. It's actually living well. And so just, who wants to be hooked up to a hospital bed when they're, older? You want to be with it. And so super aging, scientists at Northwestern University, they studied people who are in their 80s and 90s, but who think like they're still in their 40s and 50s and have the cognitive ability of the memory of someone almost half of their age. And what they found is that the older that we get, they used artificial intelligence and the latest technology to map these folks' brains. The older that we get, our brains actually shrink or parts of it get inflamed. But for super agers, that part of their cortex remained the same, and actually specifically the parts related to memory did not shrink. So the hope is that being able to study these super agers will give us a blueprint for the rest of us so that we can age more gracefully.
That's Kevin Cirilli. He's a futurist joining the Jeff and Bill Show. I'm always intrigued by aging because how much of it is tied to lifestyle? How much of it is tied to genetics? Because you always see the video of the lady, for instance, it's like, I've drank a Dr. Pepper and smoked a pack of cigarettes every day for the last 50 years, and I outlived all my doctors. So how much does it fall on the side of genetics versus lifestyle choice?
It's a great question, and I've seen that video too, and look, there's always an outlier, right? But the bottom line is only 30% of the brain is related to genetics as it relates to aging. So that should give folks a lot more hope that they actually are way more in control, but also a little bit of pressure. The decisions that we make, not just from a health and wellness perspective as it relates to diet, eating healthy, but also some of the other habits that these super agers have practiced well into their 80s and 90s. And that includes exercising 3 to 5 times a week just for about a half hour, but also staying connected, not just to their family, but also to their friends. And connected in human-to-human contact, not just through online and technology. There's a guy named Dan Buettner who studies what he's dubbed as blue zones all around the world, where there are high pockets and high concentration of humans who live beyond the age of 100. And the highest concentration pocket of folks who live beyond 100 is in Japan. Number 2 is in Italy. And then there's only one place in Loma Linda, California, where we have a blue zone here in the United States.
But these people, similarly to what Northwestern found, these people are eating healthy, they're getting some movement. They're not like Arnold Schwarzenegger, grandpa, grandma in the gym, but they are practicing some health and wellness habits well into their old age that really has long-term benefits, but they've developed it over a course of time.
That's Kevin Cirilli you're listening to. He's a futurist joining Jeff and Bill here. Kevin, I want to ask you about getting to that point that you brought up, getting to an old age and still feeling good, right? We're not talking necessarily about just extending the time in the nursing home as long as possible, but doing things now so that when you do hit your 70s and 80s, you're still active, your brain is still sharp. We're going through a very unique moment in American history, a kind of Maha moment. I joke I'm a conservative, Bill's more independent. You're kind of like on a show that's similar to the old Hannity and Combs show. But I call it the revenge of Michelle Obama. Michelle goes out there, talks about living healthy and healthy eating. Conservatives, Sarah Palin shows up to a school with a bunch of cookies. And then, lo and behold, a few years later, now conservatives are in the Make America Healthy Again movement. What are you seeing in kind of like the American psyche happening right now around healthy living?
It's such a good question. I mean, I've never heard it. That's a great analysis because you're right. I think people care more. I think people have watched. We don't have to live in a country where when you age, it's a crapshoot if you're going to be with it. And I think that all of us at least know someone, based on my reporting with Meet the Future, we all know someone who we've watched age, and it's been really tough to watch their cognitive decline and watch them lose memory, whether it's with Alzheimer's or dementia or Parkinson's. But the AI and the science is helping us to map out what's happening in our brain, prevent it, and also to make choices that alter the way that we're aging. And so I think that should be really empowering, and for all of us, that it doesn't have to be this. The way that we end our lives doesn't have to be so doom and gloom, but we do have to make some tough, not even tough, just have to make small choices that can affect that. But I do think that health and wellness is a uniquely American, the way that we think about it has been really depressing, to be blunt. But now there's a shift happening that you correctly identify, that people are feeling more empowered, but also a little fed up with watching end-of-life care for their loved ones be really horrible, for lack of a better word.
That is Kevin Cirilli, who is joining us. He's a futurist. We're talking about biohacking and living in the future. I love the term futurist. I got to get that on a T-shirt. Okay. Now, sir, you talked about the blue zones where there are certain areas, pockets of super agers. Now, the pharmaceutical companies, the diet, the exercise companies want to say, if you do this, you will extend your life. Looking at those blue zones, did they find some sort of secret ingredient? Was it they were always eating this kind of pasta, or they were walking this much a day, or what was it more the longer profile of the people in those places that they lived? Or is it something really stupid like they're living at the right altitude, and if you're at this altitude, then you live longer? What did they find based on clues or indicators?
And this is where I sound, I'm not a doctor, I want to be clear, but this is where I am going to sound really simple, which is eat your fruits and vegetables.
Simple's good on this show. Simple's great on this show. This is great.
They eat their fruits and vegetables. They eat vegetables and they eat a lot of plant. I know I'm not trying to advocate to be a vegan or whatnot. I'm from Philly. I like a hoagie and a cheesesteak. But they do eat healthy regularly. But then the other thing is that they're treating their brain like a muscle. And this really changed my way of thinking as I've been reporting on this. Is, you go to the gym, you lift weights, you go on the treadmill, you go on a walk, and that's great. But we need to start thinking of our brain like it's a muscle and that we can actually work it out. And so whether it's, a crossword or reading a book, if you're able to still, learn and engage your mind like a muscle and not this brain rot, I call it, the brain rot, social media crap. I don't know if I'm sorry about that word. but the brain rot really can have a negative impact, and it disconnects you from humans. So the last thing that they all did was that they had human-to-human contact. They were engaged with their friends and family more. They were having human-to-human interaction. They weren't just, stuffed away, lonely and isolated. They actually were getting out there to talk. I say all of this, I watched my grandmother suffer from dementia, and I know that listeners of yours have experienced this as well. And I will say I left this reporting on the super aging feeling more optimistic that the technology, when you go to the doctor and you can hopefully be able to get your brain mapped and see how your brain is doing, that you can not only take in that information, but you can actually, make adjustments to your own lifestyle to alter the course of where you'll be, whether it's 5, 10, 15, or 25 years from now.
That's fascinating. That is Kevin Cirilli. He is a futurist. And what we want to talk about as far as biohacking and making us all live longer, I want to talk about what's happening in Japan. They're seeing basically a demographic boom. This is a bomb that is going on, in my term, inside of Japan, where their aging population is far outpacing their younger population. They are almost every minute they are shrinking based on population, and they've been going through it for decades, where other populations have been just seeing it in the last 10 years or so. They've got 30 years jumps on us, so they are looking at a rapidly aging population. In the U.S., we're seeing that with the boomers, and now you're telling all of us we're going to live longer? How do societies like ours, or just in general, deal with the idea that all of a sudden we're going to have a lot more older people? I'm kind of thinking they're just trying to delay our retirement age so that Social Security still can pay out, but I don't know if I'm right about that one, Kevin. What did you find in your research?
Well, so 1 in 5 Americans by the year 2030 will be older than the age of 65. So that's significant. 1/5 of the population will be older than 65 years old. And so it has implications not just economically, but also for our medical system, the way that we treat the elderly. We can't just think of nursing homes, but assisted living, and also even apartment buildings and the style of aging that Americans specifically are going to want. I mean, what do you want your senior years to look like? And is our country and are our communities set up for that success? I would argue that we have a long way to go. I think that culturally, right now, there's the political element of it, but there's also just like the cultural, societal element of what do we all collectively want our last decades on Earth to look like, and from a lifestyle perspective, do we want more retirement communities, more nursing homes, but are our cities set up for that? And thinking through that is really going to matter, because if we don't have enough of the population treating, and not just medically, like truly not just medically, but just also from a goods and services perspective, if we're not set up to benefit them for that, then our country can't function. And so you're seeing that happening in Japan, where they're having to grapple with that. But America also should be thinking like that. And I think that the political conversation, you guys mentioned Maha, but there are even other pockets of that conversation happening, not just with big pharma, but with peptide industries as well. And mental health, I would argue, is a huge part of that conversation, and just access to mental health care at every age, and treating that early on and through your life, and making that more normalized, not just from a 1980s after school special, but checking in again on your brain health, thinking of it like a muscle. All of that needs to be modernized and thought through, and we're just at the beginning stages of it.
That's Kevin Cirilli. He's joining us. He's a futurist, and we're really thankful that he is on here. I just want to say futurist as many times as possible. Okay, now, what I want to ask about is the idea with this aging population. how long is it going to take in your research for our business community to catch up? Now, what I'm talking about is not employing them. What I'm seeing in Japan is businesses are starting to realize that since there is this older demographic boom, their post-World War II baby boom that happened, they're all in their 70s now. I think it's the first year in which that entire population now is in their 70s inside of Japan. And in there, the business community has realized they still need to buy stuff, but they need specific stuff. And so what they're doing, this is crazy, is what I've been reading is in Japan, they're seeing technological advancements in things like, as uncomfortable it is, adult diapers. There even is a very popular tea company is looking at making their teas more viscous and thicker because it's easier to swallow when you get into your 80s. So they're trying to adapt popular products so that the consumer can continue to use their product over the course of their life. It would be like the idea of McDonald's making a senior-friendly Happy Meal that's easier to chew, or maybe it's in milkshake form. What have you seen the business community and what challenges do you think they're facing as our demographic population ages?
Well, it's not even just, and it's not even just goods and services from a basic necessity. You're seeing companies, especially in the United States, actually market entertainment specifically for the elderly. I mean, because as we age longer and our quality of life is better, we live in a capitalist society. These are consumers. And so they want to listen to music. They want to consume content on streaming platforms that are tailored more for them, whether it's documentaries or whether it's even, binge watching series. You're seeing more and more of the entertainment community understanding that the same way perhaps decades ago now they identified the tween market, they're doing that now with the senior market, and it's doing really well. And so, but thinking that through, you mentioned fast food as a potential model. I would argue that automation it will be able to help with that, because the way that a senior citizen is able to actually go out and purchase, they have different purchasing habits than someone who's younger than them. So delivery, automation, all of those systems are going to be increasingly more important. And we saw this during the COVID-19 with nursing homes. When there's a catastrophe, is there an exposure in the supply chain for serving that community? These are all things that need to be thought through, because we are living longer. We are able to be living longer, but also more with it. And our systems and the way that we help each other through that is going to be more and more important.
It's Kevin Cirilli. He's a futurist joining the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking about aging and aging well. A final question for you, Kevin. How much of this is driven by a new generation of millennials entering this conversation? So I bring this up because of Casey Means. Casey's the new Surgeon General. She's only 37 years old, wrote the book Good Energy that's very popular in lots of Maha circles. I'm looking at my friends. I'm in my early 40s. Take health very seriously. And we also kind of came up in the tech boom, right? We were the first generation to utilize email and watch the internet come around. So all that technology is now being put upon health development. How much of this is rooted in a new generation of millennials getting really serious about their health?
I think it is. I think, but also, I don't think it's just millennials. I also think it really goes down to millennials watch their grandparents suffer from diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's. And when you have that experience and you look at that, and it is natural to think, is that what's going to happen to me? Is that what's going to happen when I'm that age? And to not want that for yourself or for your loved ones. And so I think that also is a part of this. And I think a lot of the questioning, especially there's the millennial element and there's the technology, there's also the COVID-19 thing, which was only about 5 years ago, and people went through that experience. And I think it really shook everybody and woke everybody up to think, hey, wait a minute, what just happened? And this can never happen again. And so I think there's a lot of folks who really checked in because they never thought that COVID or a pandemic could happen in America, and when those decisions like the lockdowns and the the vaccines and all of that was happening, I think it really woke a lot of people up to really check back in, to be more in control of the decisions for themselves, their families, and their loved ones.
That's Kevin Cirilli. You can follow him on X at Kev Cirilli. Kev Cirilli spelled Cirilli. He's a futurist and joining the Jeff and Bill Show. Kevin, thanks so much for your time today.
Yes, we appreciate you coming back from the future and joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Doc, I'm back from the future.
The future.
Kevin Cirilli.
Roads, where we're going, there are no roads.
I mean, it's an interesting time of life because I'm watching friends of mine die from cancer. I'm watching friends of mine live and heal from cancer. It's the pivot. I'm in the time of life where I'm in the pivot from invincibility and all the 20s and 30s and thinking the stuff never happens to coming to terms with the fact that everybody I know is going to die at some point, and some are dying much earlier than others, and that's just a hard chapter of life when you're going through that transition.
Oh, it's horrible, and it's really difficult, and it doesn't get easier. Right. And one of the things that was horrible in my life is that for part of my 20s, I operated under the assumption of that's a problem that older Bill is going to have to deal with. Well, now he is. And it hurts.
I mean, and you dealing with, you were telling me earlier about not getting a chance to run like you used to.
My back is shot. My knees are shot. I can't run at all like I used to. There's no way that type of aerobic exercise, the doctor's like, hey, go out and, can you run a mile or 2 miles? No, one, I'm not in shape enough to, I could if I had to, but my body won't take the pounding. The routine pounding that my ankles, my knees, and my lower back. Yeah, then I could. Yeah, then I can scoot it, and then I can skedaddle real quickly, but I'm going to be blown up in a little while. But that long-term running is so bad, and I can feel it, and the constant pounding on my lower back because of you run, and the way you have to run with distance. Distance running, as most people know, I'll geek out for a sec. Distance running, you land on your heels. When you're sprinting, you land on your toes. I'm a toe runner. I sprint. And so if I'm doing distance running, I hate running on my heels. It doesn't feel right, but more importantly, that shock when you hit the ground that goes from my ankle to my knee to my lower back, oh boy, do I ever feel it because of a series of problems and poor decisions I have made in my life. And so I can't do that. So I have to look at exercising different ways. The weirdest thing is walking. The doc that works on my back a lot is like, that's actually the best thing in the world to do. But we're also dealing with, and I both have aging parents, and we're making some adjustments in my mom's life. We had the last couple of, she's now in a retirement home, and that has some adjustments as far as what she has the access to, and the idea of continuing her independence and mobility at a time in which her mobility is being constrained. She's going to be undergoing knee surgery soon, and hope mom's not listening right now, but getting her to use the cane when she should be using the cane at times, that's kind of hard. But I understand because it's difficult to give up that sense of freedom and that ability, and it's really hard. But medically, what they're able to do and prolong the life, and what I'm really worried about is exactly what Kevin talked about, where we have our infrastructure for those later on in life. As these boomers begin to retire, we are going to need more retirement communities. They're going to need to be more of those planned communities. You're going to need places like Heather Gardens, and I don't think we think that we have a housing problem now. Wait until we get this housing problem with retirement boom when these people need to be aging in places where they need care. That's going to be the next thing we're going to be dealing with. You think the apartment crush is a problematic? This thing is going to be a real problem here in like a decade. A real problem.
Join the conversation. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. All right, let's talk. Our friends at L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. We're bouncing all over. 81 degrees today, 80 Saturday, 87 on Sunday. Then low 60s on Tuesday and Wednesday next week. That's classic Colorado, right? You got to have a system that can handle it all, heat you when it's cold, cool you when it's hot. That's L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. We have them installed at our house, and they've absolutely nailed it. One-day installation, no stress, personal service from start to finish. They even followed up to make sure everything was perfect. Our home, comfortable no matter what the weather. And with L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, we got peace of mind. Here's some of the deals they're offering right now. Free programmable thermostat or carbon monoxide detector with new furnace or air conditioner installation. No emergency charges, a $0 trip fee, price match value guarantee on equipment, free estimates, licensed and insured, and a 5-year labor warranty. Everything works great. Our family couldn't be happier. So if you're looking for fast, honest, reliable service, I highly recommend L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, 720-851-1691. 720-851-1691. Online at bestdenverhvac.com. bestdenverhvac.com. That number again, 720-851-1691. I'm sure glad we called them. L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We were just joined by Kevin Cirilli. He's a futurist, talking about how science is now pushing the boundaries of human longevity, allowing people to live healthier, longer lives, and how you can hack the human lifespan and become a super ager. And we have live in studio with us Tom, who works for 94.7. KRKS. You do the news there, and you introduce a lot of the speakers that we hear on our sister station. 82, and I mean, you're youthful. You're still working. You travel the country with your wife. Dude, you are a super ager. You're everything we talked about.
He's the first person at the radio station in the morning. He beats me. That's, man,
I'm actually
dude is
81.
here.
I will be 82.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, 81. So we're talking about how kind of science is getting better. But one of the things that was key to that conversation, and Kevin and Tom Muller, you were doing your own work, so you didn't hear the interview, but keeping your mind sharp.
Yeah.
What do you do to keep your mind sharp? Because I'm 43. I feel like I'm slipping.
Well, I actually, quote, retired when I was in my 50s, but I didn't want to be one of these guys in perfect health, and then 6 months later they died. That's why I've kept working. And then, as you know, I was news director here at KNUS, retired from that, but have been doing the Christian station. So really, that has been what's keeping my mind active, but also it gives me a purpose. It gives me a purpose. I don't know. I study the Bible every day. The Bible says that it makes the simple people knowledgeable, and I'm just a simple guy with the input from the Word of God, and I stay active, and I maintain friendships, and I travel all over in the RV.
I mean, he is the super ager. Not only is he smarter than the rest of us, Bill, he's got better hair than us. I don't know
so much.
He's 81 years old. I'm almost half his age. And Tom Muller's doing better.
Oh, yeah. At times, he'll race me to the door in the morning. We're in the parking lot. Sometimes he wins.
So one of the big aspects of the conversation we had with Kevin was maintaining friendships, especially as you get older.
Right.
And not isolating yourself.
Exactly.
You and your wife travel. How old's your wife?
She's 80.
So you guys are about the same age.
Yeah.
Still on the road. Still out visiting friends. I mean, that seems to be an important aspect.
It is. It's very important. And our family is important. I mean, we have a son and his family in California, a daughter and her family here. We spend 6 months in San Diego, 6 months here with family. We maintain our contact with our roots, or I maintain with our roots through Facebook. In fact, we're going back to a high school reunion in June, and people are dying all around us, of course, in the 80s. But you're right, maintaining social contacts, and I also say a church family. In our case, a family. We're parts of two churches, one in San Diego and one here. And we've really connected with the people. So, and I connect well with people. I think you probably know that.
Yeah, yes, I do. You're very talented at that, Tom Muller. You can hear him on 94.7 KRKS every morning. He introduces a lot of the speakers, also provides the news over there. So, Tom, thank you for taking time to join us.
Thank you for nailing me in the hallway as I got a cup of coffee.
Before we kick you out, I have one question. What is one piece of it? Oh, wait, Tom, leaving. Oh. Wait. Put the headphones back on.
He's got a question. He might not be able to hear you.
No, he can't hear me.
Bill?
No, he can't hear me. Most people try not to listen to me. Is that better? Can you hear me at all?
Okay.
There we go.
All
okay,
right,
Tom,
now I can hear you.
Question
this is
for
my
you.
fault.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Question for you, Tom. What is one thing that you wish you could go back and tell 40-year-old Tom to prepare for this stage in your life? We heard from Jeff talking about how he's getting older and he's looking forward. Let's imagine that it's, you're able to travel back in that time machine. What bit of advice would you offer 40-year-old Tom Moeller in order to help him age the way that you have? What's something you didn't know that you know now?
Well, let me see. I was born in, 43. So in the 70s, we changed our diet to healthy food. So 40, 50, 60, 70. So I was in my 30s. But even though we changed our diet, I didn't exercise. I would say the main thing I need to tell 40-year-old Tom is not wait till you're 60.
Nice.
Yeah.
Get exercise done.
Yeah, exercise was big.
I appreciate that. So that means, okay, everyone listening to the Jeff and Bill show, you understand what Tom has just told you. That if you're sitting there going, I don't have time to do the exercise today, or I'll do it tomorrow, or I don't have to finish that last set, Tom's telling you that older you is going to be mad at younger you for not doing it. So respect yourself now. Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Tom Moeller, KRKS. It seems like the recipe is healthy eating, maintain your friendships, get your soul right, make sure you're reading the Bible, and exercise.
Yeah.
That's it.
That kind of covers it.
And then that my hair will come back?
I love that pause.
No.
See, he does have a great head of hair.
Yeah, it's I'm so jealous.
Tom Moeller, KRKS. Thank you, my friend. All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Wrapping up this hour, we've been talking with Kevin Cirilli. He's a futurist about how science is now pushing the boundaries of human longevity, allowing people to live healthier, longer lives. What I found striking about that conversation was only 30% of your brain health is attributed to genetics. Another 70% comes down to your lifestyle choices. One of those big ones being be constant with people, like Tom Muller was pointing out, work. It may not have to be a full-time career job, but a hobby, a ranch to manage, something to do to get out there so you don't just shut down, retire, and sit around staring at televisions all day.
And that was one of the things that when my mom was moving into a retirement community that we were looking for was the social aspect. Is that what was that social aspect? It seems weird, but when we were going through different facilities, one of the things I was looking at was the mobility of the seniors. Not that when you get to that age, okay, here's something's funny, and your parents may not be there yet, but when you start looking at retirement communities, they talk about counting wheels, which is how many people are using wheelchairs and things. And that's something someone moving in is worried about because they're looking at, are these people more sedentary? And so while my mom was more looking at number of people that were on wheels, I was looking at activity level. What were they doing? Even if they had walkers, how much were they moving around in the hallway? How much activities did they have that were planned for them inside? Like, exercise classes or, painting classes, book clubs, stuff like that, plus external excursions. How active was the community as a whole? How many nights a week did they do movie night? When did they do these type of things? And when I found out that my mom's retirement community,
how much dating's going on?
Yeah, exactly, that too. Even had a happy hour on Friday. I'm like, okay, you have my attention. They did a lot of community gatherings, and that was part of the social system. Also, when I ran into the retirees at the place, and the number of people that were plus 95. That was crazy. And so I looked at that as this is a community that allows these people to continue to thrive, just like with Tom Muller, because that individual personal connection, they're talking with each other, they're interacting with each other, they formed a community, and they're there for each other. I was at Mass recently at my mom's place. Woman in front of me is 100. It's amazing. Now, granted, she's about the size of Yoda in Star Wars, but she has the best damn motorized wheelchair I've ever seen. I want that wheelchair when I'm her age. The thing was great.
I'm just always intrigued by capacity that comes genetically. Like Donald Trump's 78 years old. These guys that can manage the breadth of what's necessary to be the president of the United States, work, only get 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep, keep the energy up, all of it. I'm 43 going, I don't have this capacity.
Yeah.
And we're in a time where our kids are such a heavy demand on us with all their activities that you're just spent at the end of the day. So it might be seasonal for us, but I'm just always intrigued. Charlie Kirk, too, who's on right after our show, the capacity that guy has to manage all the stuff. And then, Trump eats McDonald's. I can't eat McDonald's. I'm like, I got to eat salads and get 8 hours of sleep. And here you have a guy that's 78 years old, pounding Big Macs and getting 4 hours of sleep.
You've hit on something that is fantastic, that the idea that, it's so hard to eat healthy when the bad stuff tastes so good. If they could make the good stuff taste better.
I don't know. I don't even like it anymore.
Oh,
my taste buds have changed, but that's because my wife's had me on a diet, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah. Your taste buds do change, especially your sensitivity to like spicy stuff and things like that. I almost brought this in. We'll get to this in a second. Pringles is doing a thing with hot ones. The people that eat the hot wings. Yeah, they've got some very hot potato chips. Oh, they're way too hot. My kids are like, you wimp. And I'm like, I used to be able to eat all the hot stuff. And they're like, Dad, why are you can't eat the... Yeah, I know.
All right,
getting older.
Coming up in the next hour, the Denver Post asking former mayors, can downtown Denver get its swagger back? Ooh, Pena and Webb weigh in. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is KNUS.
8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Friday, May 30th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you're waking up in the greatest country in history. Donald Trump's your president. We're off and running. We got a great hour planned for you. Would love for you to join the conversation, because unlike other shows out there, you're invited to be a part of the conversation. We want to hear from you, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Downtown Denver, can it get its swagger back? Well, the Denver Post has an article. Denver leaders agree it's both possible and vital, but what's necessary to get Denver turned around? They talk with Mayor Wellington Webb. They talk with former Mayor Federico Pena about the challenges they faced and what do they want to see from Mike Johnston. It's not complicated. It's a lot of the same stuff that we've already been talking about, but downtown Denver's overall vacancy rate, 35%, believed to be the highest rate on record for the city. But Denver's gone through downtimes in the past when oil and gas had challenges. You saw a high vacancy rate, but this one seems to be far more self-inflicted. Our own policies have driven oil and gas away, which used to be critical to the vibrancy of downtown, where just about every one of those office buildings was made up of oil and gas industry, some type of business related to it. So that's all gone now because we literally killed off the oil and gas industry with our own laws, our own radical green energy laws. So can they come back? What about the crime? What about being soft on criminals? How has that contributed? We'll get into all of this in the 8 o'clock hour, but now it's time for your news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good morning. TGIF 59 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of hopefully 82 degrees. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, inflation eased a little more than expected last month, according to the numbers out this morning from the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis. The rate in April was at 2.1%, down from 2.3% in March and below forecasts. It's the second month in a row the rate has dropped. DJT says China has broken a preliminary trade agreement. The president posted on Truth Social this morning that China has violated the agreement, adding, "So much for being Mr. Nice Guy." DJT's tariff plan has been reinstated for now. A federal appeals court granted the administration's request to pause a lower court ruling that blocked most of Trump's global tariffs.
The Senate has chosen not to exercise their powers, and the president absolutely has the right to set the trade agenda for the U.S. This administration is committed to fair trade, and we are striking the best deals for the American people, and anything that the courts do to get in the way, both harms the American people in terms of trade and in terms of tariff revenue.
Scott Bessent and ALX on X with this post: if we found the cure for cancer under DJT, a federal judge would surely ban it and rule on the side of cancer. Wow, no doubt about that. This morning in the Oval Office, DJT holding a press conference with Elon on his last day, but 47 says it's not really his last day because he will always be with us, helping all the way. Elon is terrific. Now we can expect to see a ton, hopefully, of rescission packages beginning next week. 47 will be in Pittsburgh today to hold his first rally in Pennsylvania since his reelection. They'll celebrate a multi-billion-dollar agreement between U.S. Steel and Japan's Nippon Steel. And finally, this two comedy legends are now in-laws after their children eloped. I love this. Eddie Murphy said that his son Eric Murphy recently married Jasmine Lawrence, the daughter of Martin Lawrence.
That's awesome.
So you got, isn't that awesome? So you have Murphy and Lawrence. Murphy said the young couple got married about 2 weeks ago in a modest church ceremony with just them and the preacher. So, in honor of that, one of my favorite scenes of all time, it may be my favorite scene. I mean, the movie's not great, but this scene is unbelievable. To me, Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence in a movie called Life, playing two old men locked up for life.
We next. I mean, let's be real. We next. We on deck. That you like baseball? We on deck. On deck for what? For what? That upper room. The upper room with Jesus. You know what that is? The upper room you sing about? The upper room. Yeah, that's right. Tell you what, you die first, I'm gonna sing at your funeral. I'm gonna just bust up there and go to the upper room. Let them shoot me. You crazy, Ray. Yeah.
It is such a great scene. Had to
that's wonderful.
I had to block out a couple of N-bombs and GDs.
Yeah.
And
when you started playing, I went, uh-oh.
It's better with those.
Yes, it is.
But it is fantastic. Yeah, I didn't want to scare you there, but I did edit it. Had to edit out a lot.
There may have been one orifice in my body that tightened all of a sudden because of that. Just saying.
You had your finger on the button.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
All right, the upper room when
good.
Jesus. All right, the Knicks force. Hey, we had a theme today with the, we have that, and then what you guys did last hour. Yeah, man, it all kind of worked together. The Knicks force a Game 6 in Indianapolis tomorrow against the Pacers in the Eastern Conference. Hey, in the NHL, Edmonton over the Stars. In the Western Conference, it'll be Florida and Edmonton once again in the Stanley Cup Finals. 58 in Parker, 57 in Erie, 59 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Temperatures will still be a little on the cool side, and there's still enough moisture around for night and morning fog and a few scattered showers and thunderstorms today. Highs mid to upper 60s. Clearing out a bit tonight, lows 40s and lower 50s. Partly cloudy on Friday, warming to near 80 with late day widely scattered thunderstorms. 70s to lower 80s Saturday, a few late-day thunderstorms, well into the 80s Sunday, with a few thunderstorms late. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free, no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Can the city of Denver be saved? That's the question the Denver Post asked some community leaders, former mayors like Federico Pena, Wellington Webb, as well as current Chamber of Commerce leaders like J.J. Amend. Good question. Now, I want to begin this conversation by just pointing out that there was a time when conservatives were raising lots of concerns, particularly around 2020. When crime, homelessness was starting to really grow in the city of Denver. And if you remember, there was a certain television anchor who said, oh, you white people hiding out in the suburbs, peeking through blinds, concerned that black people and Antifa were going to harm you, all that stuff. Somebody totally dismissed the concerns. By the way, you can buy a t-shirt at kylescairns.com. kylescairns.com for your latest Kyle Clark protest T-shirts or support T-shirts.
Yes, this is more than just ink and stitching and cloth. This is about a lifestyle choice. So choose wisely. We have one for everybody. Yes, you can choose if you enjoy that type of news broadcast or one if you don't. So again,
join more than just the one person that's
exactly
just
the one.
A member of Kyle's Cairns.
It's just the one.
So news just dismissed it. Oh, you white people in the suburbs not coming downtown because you're racist, that type of thing. Oh, lo and behold, the city of Denver is now nearing total collapse because of crime, because of homelessness, because of what conservatives were pointing out. It wasn't racism that was driving people to not go downtown. It was pretty simple. You implemented a bunch of policies that killed the industries that work down there, primarily oil and gas. Those office buildings used to be just oil and gas related industries everywhere. And you literally, at the state capitol, banned fracking from the state of Colorado, and then you're surprised that the office buildings are closing. Then you had DAs and judges that were soft on crime, allowed the bad guys back out. So you had a crime issue. You had urban camping, which were really just drug-addicted people living in tents everywhere downtown. And lo and behold, a few years later, can downtown get its swagger back? Denver leaders agree it's both possible and vital. Revitalizing downtown Denver faces hurdles like crime, zoning, permitting, and remote work, experts say. This is from the Denver Post. So what are the problems? Here are the problems. First of all, you have a very high office vacancy rate. Downtown Denver is grappling with a 35.3% office vacancy rate in quarter one of 2025, up from 34.9% in quarter four of 2024. It is one of the highest vacancy rates among 78 cities studied by Moody. This is driven in part by post-COVID shifts to remote work, companies consolidating, looking for higher quality spaces, leaving many older office buildings empty or distressed, and the fact that you just killed off the industries. Chevron's leaving. Oil and gas, which used to be so important to Colorado, was been pushed out by these environmentalist wackos, and as a result, you have high office vacancy rates. Number two, economic stagnation and business closures. The economic vitality of downtown is weakened, with businesses, particularly restaurants, closing at a high rate. 82% of Colorado's restaurant closures in 2023-2024 occurred in Denver. 82% of all the restaurants closing in Colorado occurred in Denver. Higher minimum wage requirements, increased regulations, and a perceived lack of city support for small businesses is driving that. Number three, this is where I think, next to stupid policies about minimum wage and oil and gas and those types of things, number three, safety. Persistent safety issues, including crime and homelessness, deter visitors, residents, and businesses. These concerns hinder efforts to revitalize the area, as people are less likely to visit and invest in an area they perceive as unsafe. This also deals with sales tax, and half of the revenue that comes in for the city of Denver, so you can go do all your little progressive projects like homeless hotels and providing $356 million for illegal immigrants. You only get that money if people go downtown and spend the money. If you don't have people with disposable income going to the theater, going to sports, going to eating downtown, you're not going to get the money for your little progressive dreams. It doesn't happen. Safety, number three. Number four, empty retail and commercial spaces. I went down and walked the 16th Street Mall. I mean, it's block after block of empty retail spaces. They've all left. And in fact, do you remember when they were offering like free security guards at one point? The city, or I think it was maybe the landowners were offering free security guards. Retail and restaurant businesses are struggling, with many storefronts vacant or boarded up. Despite some new restaurant openings, the overall trend shows a decline in retail activity exacerbated by construction disruptions and high rents, which remain at $41.57 per square foot, despite an oversupply. That's going to have to correct itself. 5, construction and infrastructure challenges. Ongoing construction, particularly on the 16th Street Mall, disrupts foot traffic and accessibility, further impacting businesses. I went and spoke to one guy who's been down there for over 40 years, since they actually created the 16th Street Mall. And the word he just kept using was survive. Can I just get to the end of the month with all this construction when they're supposed to open up and hopefully things will change? Survival was the word he kept using. The completion of the 16th Street Mall, eventually supposed to be done in late 2025, is seen as critical, but has already caused significant inconvenience. It's been delayed. It's over budget. Real problem there. Reputation decline, number 6. Denver's national reputation as a vibrant city is fading, making it harder to attract businesses, tourists, and residents. This is compounded by economic instability, including rising homelessness, which contributed to the city's declining appeal. Man, it's heartbreaking. And then high costs and economic pressures, high minimum wages, and operating costs squeeze small businesses, particularly restaurants, which face additional burdens from lengthy permitting processes and city regulations. These pressures make it difficult for businesses to remain viable. So Denver Post, identifying all these problems, now goes out and talks to former mayors who've had to deal with problems kind of similar to this in the past. Pena pointing out that when the oil and gas kind of crash of the 80s and 90s took place, Denver declined, but this seems to be more self-inflicted than previous problems. Can they get it back? Here's what they recommend. Number 1, enhance safety and address homelessness. Improving public safety is critical to attract residents, visitors, and businesses. This includes tackling issues like crime and homelessness, which deter people from spending time downtown. A safer environment is seen as foundational to economic recovery. Bill, we were talking about this months ago. 6 months ago, we called it the woman with the pearls and diamond rings theory. That if you made the city so safe that Cherry Creek and Cherry Hills women with their fur coats and their pearls and the diamond rings can go from the Buell Theater to dinner and back and not feel unsafe, well then, lo and behold, look at the sales tax revenue coming in.
Yeah. It's a great point. It is a really, really good point. And I got to give a shout out to the texter 8422. Great example. The texter shared, remember when we were revitalizing lower downtown and building the Major League ballpark and how safe and secure that area was, both and the changeover of before. I was recently and this is so weird to talk about this, was recently having a conversation with one of my kids, and we were talking about downtown Denver, and they were talking about unsafe and the homelessness and things like that. And I said, here's something that's weird, is that parts of downtown were like that, but other parts weren't when I was growing up. I said, do you understand why the Denver Rescue Mission and a lot of those services are on the north side of downtown? Because that's where the homeless were at the time. When they built the ballpark and cleaned up everything, they didn't move those facilities. They didn't have the means, and they didn't want to. Now, because of the transformation, they were kind of, I wouldn't say struggling, but they were oddities in that area during the revitalization of lower downtown. Now it's back to the idea of they're absolutely necessary and they're in the right place because we've seen it transformed back the other direction. More homelessness, more crime, more drug addiction, more alcoholism in that areas of downtown. And so now you're seeing it. And they were like, wow, that's crazy. I'm like, yeah, lower downtown used to be an awful place to go. You were not safe down there, but going down to Larimer Square, that's different. Now you look at things like 16th Street Mall, and yeah, safety has a lot to do with it. But this comes back to the old Bob the Builder phrase. If you remember the cartoon show, can we do it? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We did it before. And I appreciate 8422 for highlighting what we did during the revitalization of Lower Downtown. So the idea is we have the ability. We can make this happen. We've done it before in an area that was filled with homelessness, with crime, with drug and alcohol addiction, and totally transformed it. But now, as 8422 points out, we've all let it go to hell for a variety of reasons. So yes, we do need to take a hard look at this, and you need to revitalize downtown because, again, that's where the sales tax is.
How much of downtown has to change? And I bring this up because it's discussed in the article that a lot of those empty office buildings that have huge vacancy rates, some of the highest in the nation, are being sold pennies on the dollar to change to residential.
Yeah.
So is it time, here's the question I have for you and I have for our listeners, is it time to change downtown from office building focused to residential focused? And that will improve things because people don't like crime where they live. So they may well have tolerated it because they're down there for 8 hours during the day and then left, but they're not going to want this in their backyard. So if you change the buildings to be more residential focused, it may change the crime issue and it'll change the actual feel of downtown. Do you want to see that? Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I do. But I wouldn't go to make it more residential. I would look at it as mixed use. And the idea being there always has been this kind of ring around central downtown of housing. And it was always high density. It was cheap. I mean, you're talking to a dude that lived with another guy in a studio apartment downtown. Okay, 2 dudes, studio apartment. That's a challenge. So, do I have stories on that one? And the fact that we're still friends. So yes, but that was because we could make it work because work was so close. I could practically just ride a bike to work and did a lot of times. And it was the commute that was easier because it was money that I didn't have to spend. And so by making it mixed use where you could have residency and office space down there together along with the restaurants, along with the retail, because if you bring me downtown to live and we redo some of those office buildings, chances are, just based on parking and things like that, I may not get in my car and go and drive to the King Soopers, but that King Soopers in the area or Safeway will see some added traffic because of me living there. But also those restaurants are going to see added traffic because I'm in the neighborhood. So when my friends come to see me, we're going to go there. When I don't want to cook because I look at what's in the fridge and all I've got are, at the younger age, all I've got is a jar of mayo and 2 bottles of ketchup and both are somewhat empty and that's all I got and an old thing of pickles. It's basically it. You're going to go out to eat. Also, where are you going to go and shop? Where are you going to go buy? You may not get in your car and go to Target. You've got several other retail operations right within steps of your front door. There's opportunity there, and I think that's absolutely necessary. And I know it is a problem for the owners of this office building space to be selling pennies on the dollar. But again, that was an investment. And I'm sorry, but investments change. Everybody that has bought a house in one area and seen the house change and seen their housing properties drop, things change. This happens. Traffic can change. People's behaviors change. Everybody that invested all their money in those fidget spinners, well, that went bust. So those are investments. And sometimes investments pay off and do well. Sometimes they don't. But that's the idea is we hear from the investors, I need to have these tax breaks. I need to have this because I'm taking the risk. Yes, and guess what? I hate to say this, but you took the risk, and in this situation, it didn't work out. Yes, you're going to lose money on this. Sorry. Or do you have a way to turn this investment that you have rather than selling it and change it into a mixed-use location, especially housing? You may be able to make your money back at that point, but it depends on what your pain level is for that investment. But that's what we talk about. Every time you hear the people that are advertising the gold or anything else here, it's like, every investment comes with an element of risk. They can't guarantee returns, nor should we have to guarantee that with office space downtown.
Is it time for downtown Denver to change its development, change its office buildings to mixed use, bring in more residential? Obviously, they've got to address crime and homelessness, but Can downtown Denver be saved? Want to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Campos Law text line, 720-819-5115. And if it does need to be changed, what are those changes? Who can do it? Do you trust Mike Johnston? Federico Pena, Mayor Webb starting to weigh in on this. Wellington Webb, can they get Denver back? Want to hear from you. Well, speaking of problems with crime, we all know what's happening here in Colorado. You have to have a great alarm detection system in order to protect your businesses. That's who we trust and recommend to you. Alarm detection systems for the highest level of service and expertise. They bring it all together, one source for your cameras, keycard access, fire and intrusion systems. Here's what they offer: expert alarm installation and testing by highly trained technicians, 24/7 professional monitoring, same day or next day service upon request, because downtime, we know, isn't an option. Dedicated teams for cameras, access control, and fire alarms, and over 300 security professionals working for you. Choosing ADS means your business stays protected and will be ready to open tomorrow. They combine human monitoring with the latest AI camera technology to prevent crime in real time. Trusted by small and large businesses, including many Colorado schools, their security experts will review your system for free. Go to adsalarm.com to schedule your appointment today. adsalarm.com, alarm detection systems, the first choice of Front Range and Colorado businesses. adsalarm.com. We'll continue with your phone calls and text. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Headline out of the Denver Post: Can downtown get its swagger back? Denver leaders agree it's both possible and vital, but it's going to take some work. It's not rocket science. Bill and I have been talking about it forever. It's mostly a crime-related issue and a regulation-related issue. Text messages coming in 9779. A couple of weeks ago, my family went down to see the Illusion Museum. I noticed a homeless Skippy walking up behind my wife on her purse side. So I stepped in between him and her. He said, "Don't walk up on me, man." And things escalated on his side from that. To keep from going to jail for killing the guy, I directed my family in another direction. I hadn't been downtown in 5 years. I have no desire to go back. To hell with downtown Denver and its incompetent government. 4337. As long as Democrats are in office, Denver will remain stagnant. You're not wrong on that. 7586, we're going to get some cowboy poetry. Yes, we are. Jeff Hildebrandt's live in studio. Billy, the banks aren't going to get their money from investors. Oh, that might be on a different issue. Oh, no, this is. Billy, banks aren't going to get their money from the investors to whom you say, too bad, pal. Banks are going to fail. Westward ran a piece a year ago detailing only a fifth of the office buildings can be converted to residential. Finally, Denver small businesses are going to flee once their lease expires. Restaurants are on life support.
Well, the other part, though, is that revitalization would involve, destruction of some of the buildings and rebuilding them. We don't seem to have a problem with that. And again, if the banks are leveraged to a point in the investments and they have made investments that have turned on them as well based on their loans, yes, then the bank has done bad loans. This is the problem, is that, and I appreciate the texter, and I hate to be as callous at this at times, but over and over and over again in our personal daily lives, it's, you should have made better choices. We're sorry you made the choice to buy this or invest in this or not get this degree or to get this degree or not take this job or not to move. But now we need to insulate the banks and the people that own the office buildings from their choices? No, we do not. That's part of the problem. We got ourselves into the financial crisis of 2008 because we felt the banks and the investment houses couldn't make any wrong. That's incorrect. If the bank has floated loans to investment properties that are underwater and they can't make the money back, bad loans. Nobody's coming to save my bacon if I make a bad choice on my mortgage or my car loan. If I'm underwater in any of those, no one's coming to save me.
So much of this just seems so self-inflicted. Like, you just got to, we're all sitting there going, address the crime issue, address the crime issue, address it. And it's like, more money for illegal immigrants. Come on, guys. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Mike, Denver. Good morning, Mike. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Morning, guys. I'm a lifetime resident in Denver. I was born in St. Joseph's Hospital in 1947.
Hey,
so I've lived here
man.
So I'll tell you something. We've all seen it. And here's the problem. Problem is not banks making bad investments or buyers buying bad investments. The problem is government intrudes and changes the rules. For example, you want to rebuild your office building and put it into residential. Everything you do needs to be fully electric, no gas. That's why developers are leaving the city. They just won't put up with that. You're going to have parking for your tenants. What the city council's doing now is it's trying to eliminate parking requirements. I don't want a building where none of my tenants can park anywhere. They refuse because it's a religion. They're going to ban vehicles from this city. People in the West, especially Denver, don't like that, and they're not going to put up with it. They're going to leave. So if you don't want to try to help these people by revoking and repealing some of these ridiculous laws that they've passed, both at the state legislature and at the city council, nothing's going to change because the people with the money that want to make the investments are not going to pay their dishwasher $20 an hour to open up a restaurant.
Not if the thing is that I would say, Mike, that the people running the restaurants would pay their dishwasher $20 an hour if they had enough foot traffic and had enough sales in order to pay rent and to afford that level of wages. And that's where I think some of this comes from. I agree with you that a lot of the stupid regulations as far as, building and construction and permitting process, when you make it too long and too onerous, it discourages that investment. And because I have this pain point about, and Jeff and I disagree on this as far as where we set minimum wages and stuff, because I still say that if you had a very profitable restaurant, you could afford to pay your dishwasher $20 an hour. But as you're accurately pointing out, saying you have to pay your dishwasher $20 an hour in a location that costs you so much more extra time, effort, and money to build, plus doesn't have the foot traffic, and it seems like the city is actively working against you from even getting that foot traffic, and I'm talking about having a restaurant on 16th Street Mall, that's a negative.
Should we let it die at this point? Look, Denver Broncos are looking to move down to Lone Tree. Cherry Creek seems to be doing okay.
Everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, a significant part of the population is looking to move. Where I live, I can shop right across from Colorado Boulevard and not pay the ridiculous Denver sales tax. I have to go 2 blocks. So when the liberals in this city and on this city council get the point that business needs to make profit, there's nothing bad about it, and get out of the way, investment will come back into the city. But until they do that, which means they need to change a lot of their philosophy and a lot of their religion, it's not going to happen.
And Mike, I'm not sure it'll ever happen, because if they were reasonable people to begin with, they'd probably be conservatives, but they're liberals. And so what you'll see is, well, gosh, whoever's left here, we got to jack up the taxes on them, make them pay even more. So you'll get higher taxes upon the kind of, southeast side of Denver with the nice big mansions down there. They'll run up the taxes on them in an effort to try to stop this. But, I mean, if they were people that could be reasoned with, I think they'd be conservatives already.
Jeff, they've already raised the taxes. Denver just passed a 3% or 0.03% tax plan so that they could subsidize Denver General Hospital.
Yep.
I've lived here 77 years. We've never had to subsidize Denver General Hospital. So it's that kind of stupid thinking that just doesn't make sense. Put a businessman in charge of this city, not some liberal from Vail, going to turn it around.
Great call, Mike. Thank you so much. Mike from Denver, his line will be open, 303-696-1971. All right, let's talk Memorial Day savings. Yes, I know Memorial Day was last weekend, but our friends at Mountain High Appliance are continuing their savings deal for just a few more days. You got to take advantage of this. Remodel that kitchen that you've been dreaming about. Right now, Mountain High Appliance, you can save up to $3,800 on stunning cafe appliances featuring customizable hardware and bold show-stopping finishes. $3,800 on stunning cafe appliances. Take advantage of these limited time offers. When you think appliances, think locally owned Mountain High Appliance. So, Bill, we've talked about crime. We've talked about restaurant regulations, all that. How much of this do you think could be turned around if we just got serious again about allowing oil and gas to operate in Colorado?
And I'm not convinced. And the reason why is I understand that seems like a bunch of magic fairy dust that we can just do. But let's say that we did open up and get oil and gas more involved. Why would they go downtown? What would be the reason to open an office building downtown, to say that we are going to bring in several hundred, if not hundreds and hundreds of employees of our company, and you're going to put them downtown with all the problems that we're talking about, with all the issues. I mean, we have the idea of, with Mike talking about extra sales tax, when we talk about increased cost, when we talk about the crime, we talk about homelessness, when we talk about problems with parking, you talk about traffic. Why? Why would you go there? Why wouldn't you drop something like DTC? Why wouldn't you look for somewhere that is in Aurora? Why wouldn't you? That's the issue, is if the Denver Broncos are looking at a new location that is outside the hub of the Denver Metro, how would you convince oil and gas to go there? What would be the motivation? If a large group like that isn't looking at staying in downtown, then why in the heck would I bring my oil and gas business, if I owned one, and set up shop downtown? Why wouldn't I go somewhere else where I might be able to attract my workers and put them in neighborhoods and communities where they're happier with, rather than having a 45-minute trek through the I-25 hell during drive time in the morning? Why not go somewhere that might be closer to where they may choose to live? Why wouldn't I, if I'm doing it, if I can get the prices right, why don't I go to Castle Rock? Why don't I go somewhere like that? Why don't I go into the South Metro Business District that's seen some growth? So that's the kicker, is looking at the idea of, if we open up this industry, I'm not convinced that downtown is where they would go with their business, because I'm not certain I would take my business, if I had my fictitious business, and open up that space downtown.
If I was Mike Johnston and the mayor of Denver, looking at the problems our city is facing, right? Everything from high vacancy rates in office buildings to declining sales tax revenue to the rise of homelessness and crime, and you're looking at all these problems, I think it would be a fair analysis to go, okay, we as a state doubled down on green energy. Man, we really went after green energy. Oh, all right. Well, it's not really delivering a lot. A lot of those offices are now empty. If you could think of people that you would want to bring back, and you look at cities that have really embraced oil and gas, like Houston, for instance, and you want to try to get those types of people back, right? White collar analysts, accountants, lawyers, everything that comes with the oil and gas industry, I would be having a very serious analysis on what we've done, why we went all in on green energy. It hasn't delivered nearly what Colorado used to have under oil and gas. Let's try rolling those back. Let's try incentives to bring those people downtown. Those are the type of people you want downtown. I think it would be wise for Mike Johnston to do that. All right, let's talk L&L heating and air conditioning. Colorado kind of bounces all over the place. I had the weather around here somewhere, but it was, here we go, 81 today, 80 tomorrow, Saturday in Denver, 87 Sunday. Sizzling day, Channel 7 labels it. Then guess what? By Tuesday, $63 63 degrees. Colorado's bouncing back and forth. You need to have an air conditioning and heating system that can manage all that and keep you comfortable. Well, we went out and did the research for you. Folks, we looked at a number of different organizations and companies. We had them out to the house, interviewed them. We chose L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, and we are thrilled at my house. One-day installation, no stress, personal service from start to finish, and they even followed up to make sure everything was perfect. Now, our home's finally comfortable no matter what the weather, and with L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, we got peace of mind. Here's some of the deals they're offering right now. This is important. Free programmable thermostat or carbon monoxide detector with a new furnace or air conditioner installation. I can now program my AC and heat via my phone. It's awesome. No emergency charges, so they're not going to nickel and dime you when you're dealing with a problem. $0 trip fee, price match value guarantee on equipment, free estimates, licensed and insured, and a 5-year labor warranty. Everything works great. Our family couldn't be happier. So if you're looking for fast, honest, reliable service, I highly recommend L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, 720-851-1691, online at bestdenverhvac.com. bestdenverhvac.com. I'm sure glad we called them. That number again, 720-851-1691. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. Can Denver be rescued, or should it be abandoned? You progressives want to drive up the taxes and regulations on everybody, allow criminals and illegal immigrants? Have at it. But we're not going downtown anymore. Businesses should leave. Let's look at places that are better managed, like Lone Tree, for instance. Or should we try to save the city? Want to hear from you? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking a headline out of the Denver Post. Can downtown get its swagger back? Denver leaders agree it's both possible and vital. I also found this interesting. It's not just Denver that's dealing with sales tax. In fact, the 5 largest cities, all in Colorado, are going to have budget shortfalls. Ooh. So not just Denver. Denver's a little bit bigger. It's about a 4% budget shortfall. Aurora dealing with about a 2% budget shortfall, as well as Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, and Lakewood. Oh, wow. All facing budget shortfalls, mostly driven by sales tax revenue declines.
Yeah. Not spending as much, yeah.
People aren't spending money, they aren't going out, and then you can get into a whole lots of theories as to why that's happening. Economic instability, tariffs possibly, crime. People don't want to go out in the cities. But all 5 of Colorado's biggest cities going to face budget shortfalls this next year.
And then you wonder why down under the Golden Dome we have an overall budgetary problem because revenue's not coming in. So if we're seeing a hole in the local budgets, that's going to be exacerbated in the state budget as well, because it's not as if Lakewood is going to be short on their own local budget and go, oh, and we have this big giant pile of money for the state. No, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen. So we can assume, as much as I don't like the assumptions, that their contributions to our state coffers are also going to diminish. And that's a problem when, okay, inside of Aurora, you're facing a 2% budget shortfall. But if you're trying to draw money from all of the municipalities to create a state budget, and lots of these larger municipalities, the one where all the people are, the ones that generate the most revenue, are facing a shortfall, they're not going to contribute because, I love it, but I don't think that Gunnison is going to make up for the sales tax loss inside of Colorado Springs. It's just not going to happen. There's just not enough sales tax there, so that's the problem.
So what do? Mayors of all these cities, city councils are going to be looking at cuts, look at cuts for services, and employees being furloughed. And of course, because many of them, not necessarily Aurora, but Lakewood, Denver, Fort Collins, run by progressive city councils, expect a tax increase. Because God forbid you'd ever cut something.
That's just what I thought for a second. I was thinking about our caller earlier in the hour, Mike, talking about how he'll go 2 blocks to avoid the Denver sales tax. And I think that's exactly what I was thinking when I talk about how are they going to create this revenue loss. Sales tax seems like the easy one because it's a consumption tax. So it seems like, hey, if you're not buying the stuff, it's not going to hurt you as much. However, the sales tax inordinately hurts people on the lower income bars simply because they have less wiggle room in their money. If you're making $10 million a year versus $50,000 a year, when sales tax goes up, you got a lot more wiggle room in your budget in order to absorb the sales tax. So that consumption tax is not going to work because, as we heard earlier in the hour from Mike, people will go somewhere else to shop. If your sales tax to wander down the street, to jump in your car and go down to the store near your house and to buy the stuff that you need, whatever it is, maybe it's Tupperware containers, maybe it's t-shirts, maybe it's a blanket, maybe it's a wedding gift. If that sales tax is greater than, I don't know, Amazon, you're gonna have a problem. Yep. If I can get it delivered to my house
just
cheaper,
add higher delivery fees.
Yes, exactly. What are we gonna do about that?
Well, in the 9 o'clock hour, Alliance Defending Freedom, you know them from defending Jack Phillips, Lori Smith. They've got a case coming up against the U.S. Supreme Court this fall over conversion therapy bans and compelled speech issues. They're representing Idra Haji, and now XXXY Athletics is suing Colorado for violating the right to speak truth that men and women are different. ADF filing suit on behalf of the apparel company after state passes that radical transgender law that we talked about, restricting the band's ability to refer to male athletes and customers as male if they identify as female. This is now the second round of lawsuits against House Bill 1312. We're going to talk with attorneys directly from Alliance Defending Freedom on what this means. You've probably seen lots of debates about whether or not pastors can speak freely from the pulpit. Will they face problems? Could their churches face problems? Could they, in their own personal capacity, be brought up on issues? All of that being debated in light of House Bill 1312, a policy that amends the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act to define gender expression to include chosen name and how an individual chooses to be addressed. The law, therefore, requiring businesses like XX and XY Athletics to address male customers who identify as females, and also requires businesses to avoid any statement or advertisement that could indicate customers are unwelcome. Wow! Well, you're going to hear the latest from the attorneys on the front lines of this battle. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Well, it's 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Friday, May 30th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Colorado's blue, America's red. It all meets right here on the Jeff and Bill Show, where you're invited to join us by giving us a call at 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dancapolis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Again, 720-819-5115. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Suzanne Beecher is going to join us. She's legal counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom. You probably know her name, Jennifer Say. She, great history, storied history, right? A business executive, a gymnast, was on the United States Women's National Artistic Gymnastics team, was the 1986 U.S. Women's All-Around National Champion, also a member of the 1985 U.S. Women's World Championship team that finished sixth, as well as the U.S. team in the 1986 Goodwill Games. She went on to have a storied career in apparel, rising to Chief Marketing Officer and Brand President at Levi Strauss & Company, and then started to push back on a lot of the COVID craziness that was happening and founded XXXY Athletics, a sportswear company that's about being brave, telling the truth, protecting women's sports by recognizing that it's just simply unfair and dangerous at times to allow males with XY chromosomes to compete in girls' and women's XX chromosomes sports. That's hence the company XXXY. Well, in light of Colorado's radical transgender bill 1312, they feel like their constitutional rights are being violated. Alliance Defending Freedom is representing them, and they're going to join us here in just a second. Suzanne Beecher, legal counsel with ADF, to give us the latest on this court battle. Already, I mean, I think this law is less than a month old. Two pretty significant lawsuits coming up against it. Now is time for your 9 a.m. dose of news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, TGIF. 66 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 82 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, Elon's final day as a special government employee is today. 47 will hold a news conference with Elon in the Oval Office in about 2 hours. J.D. Vance.
I think what he's done is really incredible. People sort of forget that when he came into the U.S. government, we had never had a full-scale effort to actually look at, are we spending the American people's dollars wisely? And he found in a very short period of time over $170 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse.
DJT accusing China of breaking a preliminary trade agreement. The president says China has violated the agreement, adding so much for being Mr. Nice Guy. Colorado reps Gabe Evans and Lauren Boebert praising 47's big, beautiful bill in the House during an event at the state capitol on Thursday. Boebert said it won't cut Medicaid benefits for those who need them.
Waste, fraud, and abuse, improper payments, that is what we are eliminating. We are not eliminating lawful use of Medicaid. This was never supposed to be something that American citizens lived on for their life.
It's illegal immigrants and it's able-bodied, working-aged adults with no dependents who choose not to work, volunteer, or go to school part-time, but that is their choice.
They were heckled, you could hear them, by about 100 protesters, most of which have been interviewed by the great Jeff Hunt in the last few months.
Yeah, they just go from one protest to the next.
That's right. They were looking for you, too.
What are you upset about? I don't know. I'm just here because someone told me to come here and yell.
They were looking for that friendly KNUS mic flag, and they didn't see it on Thursday.
I know. It was live while we were on air. It would have been fun to be down there.
They burned you out. A lot like them. They're burned out, and they burned you out. I would have loved to have seen a few of them, though. Man, they're loud, though. Wow. Former NYPD Commissioner Bernard Carrick has passed away at the age of 69. He's only 69. Wow. He was the top cop in the city during the 9/11 attacks. Okay, finally, it's TGIF. I've got to talk about this. We've seen what a fraud fake Tapper is, and all these lefty commies who are now all of a sudden sounding like conservatives. I can't stand them. But what I really can't handle is conservative hosts, podcasters, content creators who have Stephen A. Smith on their shows. They use the sound bites or they interview him from this ultimate fraud. I've heard him for years on Hannity and Levin, et cetera, whatever the show. And Stephen A. finds a phone to jump on and tell him how much he loves him. And even though we don't agree on everything, I love you, I love the show. And well, please, this dude is ridiculous. So he had Tapper on. He interviewed Tapper, and Stephen A. interviewed Tapper on his podcast.
Nobody comes out looking better than Donald Trump and the MAGA right. Because the things that they were saying, the things that they were accusing the left of, the things that they were accusing legacy media of, whether it's true or not, they look right.
Oh, of course he's correct, but duh. Stephen A., you freaking voted for Kamala Khan. Like 7 months ago, you voted for her. Since we've all talked about the lack of journalism with Tapper, let's talk about the best journalism. The last year has to be from Jason Whitlock, who's absolutely exposed the fraud that is Stephen A. Smith. In his memoir, Stephen A. lied about playing college basketball at Winston-Salem, lied about how he earned a scholarship. Then he said he cracked his knee, had a 6-inch screw put in it, scored 1.5 points. Then, no, I didn't score any points at all. Played in one game. No, I didn't play in a game. No, I played in a couple of games. Then he did, then he didn't. Hit 17 straight threes in a tryout. What? Did a live show with allegedly his former teammates who all look like point guards. Whitlock exposed all of them, all this garbage. The greatest slam dunk on anyone ever posterized Stephen A. And yet all these jackwagons in the media continue to interview this clown and use clips from him and prop him up. Stop. Interview Whitlock. For the love of God. Forget Stephen A. Smith. Speaking of Stephen A. Smith.
We ever put Blake Olson and Stephen A. Smith and James Comey in the same room? Be careful.
Yeah, man. I would enjoy that, actually.
You get fired up.
Wow. Can you imagine the stories there? Wow. I mean, that's it. Whitlock did such a great job. I mean, there are about 50 just fraudulent stories in this book that he wrote. And it sounds, you're right. It sounds just like James Comey, no doubt. 86-47. 86 essay or whatever. All right, the Knicks. I think he's a Knicks fan. I don't know. Or he covered the Knicks. He has no idea who even plays for the Knicks. They force a Game 6 in Indiana tomorrow against the Pacers. NHL, it'll be Florida and Edmonton in the Stanley Cup Finals. 65 in Greenwood Village, 64 in North Glen, 66 in Denver. And Jeff and Billy continue.
Temperatures will still be a little on the cool side, and there's still enough moisture around for night and morning fog and a few scattered showers and thunderstorms today. Highs mid to upper 60s. Clearing out a bit tonight, lows 40s and lower 50s. Partly cloudy on Friday, warming to near 80 with late day widely scattered thunderstorms. 70s to lower 80s Saturday, a few late-day thunderstorms, well into the 80s Sunday, with a few thunderstorms late. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free, no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
No one does it better. Alliance Defending Freedom comes to the rescue of Coloradans that are being abused by our government and having our constitutional rights taken away. They were the ones that defended Jack Phillips. They were the ones that defended Lori Smith. They're the ones defending Camp Idra Haji in its latest lawsuit. And now they're also defending Jennifer Say and the great people over at XXXY Athletics. They are suing the state for violating the right to speak truth that men and women are different. Joining us, because you've heard all about this radical transgender law. We were down there the day it was heard. We were leading rallies. We have spoken with opponents to this law. House Bill 1312, this radical transgender bill that was signed into law, already facing multiple constitutional challenge lawsuits. To give us insight on this latest one, Suzanne Beecher, legal counsel for Alliance Defending Freedom. Suzanne, thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thanks. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's talk. What is this lawsuit all about?
Yes, so this lawsuit is challenging, as you said, a newly passed Colorado law that is censoring the speech of state businesses, including our client, XXXY Athletics. Now, a lot of people are probably familiar with XXXY, but for those who aren't, it's an apparel retailer that was founded in response to the increasing number of males who were competing in girls' sports. So central to the mission and philosophy of XXXY is the fact that men and women are physiologically different and that sex is binary and immutable. So, of course, given this, it's XXXY's policy to refer to males, including males who identify as females, using accurate pronouns in their given names. But under this Colorado law, they're prohibited from doing that. And instead, Colorado is forcing XXXY and businesses like them to speak the state's message rather than the message that's consistent with the mission of their business.
And what this law does is it opens up the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. This was this commission that raked Jack Phillips over the coals for over a decade, referring to him as, Nazi-like, essentially, because he had Christian values and he wanted to run his business according to his Christian values and didn't want to be compelled to violate his values with regards to speech and the creation of messages that he disagreed with. It opens up that same Civil Rights Commission to now, if you are a business that quote unquote dead names or misgender somebody, you can be brought before this Colorado Civil Rights Commission and face real consequences. Talk to us about what could happen to a business like XXXY that violates this law.
Yes, that's right. So like you're saying, this is an amendment to the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, and that's the same act that Colorado has been using to censor speech in the past, including in the case of 303 Creative. And the penalties for violations are harsh. So it's fines of up to $3,500 per offense, and in addition to civil and potentially criminal penalties for going against this law.
That's Suzanne Beecher. She's with Alliance Defending Freedom, a legal counsel. We're talking about a new lawsuit coming from XXXY Athletics. Let's talk about why this law was created. So we listened to lots of testimony, and the argument that was made from the proponents that passed this law was, look, there are just really mean people out there. There are people that bully, intimidate, and harass transgender people, and do so in a way that is mean-spirited. We need to add these protections so that somebody in an employment situation or goes into a business faces this type of harassment, they have an avenue to seek some sort of help. What's your response to the proponents of the law that go, look, this is important to protect the civil rights of transgender people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess to start with, I would just say, as we know, the First Amendment protects the right of people and businesses to express views, even views that the government may disfavor. So this law is being couched as compassionate, but in reality, it's censoring one side of a debate that's at the center of public discourse. Debates regarding gender, and it's actually choosing the side opposite the vast majority of Americans. So you're probably familiar with a recent New York Times survey that found that 79% of Americans across the political spectrum don't believe that males should be competing in women's sports. But Colorado, with this law, is silencing that side of the debate and instead forcing businesses to speak its message on this issue that's at the heart of public discourse right now.
That's Suzanne Beecher with Alliance Defending Freedom. And Suzanne, I think we've seen in the past laws that were intended to be a shield, for instance, adding gay people to the idea of civil rights protections was to protect them from being discriminated. Okay, well, it was maybe intended to be a shield, but it was used as a sword. We all know that they sought out Jack Phillips, Autumn Scardina, the attorney that called and harassed Jack. We know that these laws aren't just there to protect people, that activists will use them to go out and penalize people they disagree with. There's another case heading up towards the Supreme Court now on compelled speech and conversion therapy here in the state. So what about this law becomes a problem for XXXY? I was particularly intrigued in the law itself by requirements around advertisement and why the state needs to step in and protect advertisements. Talk to us about that.
Yes, that's right. So the law covers communications that businesses make to the public, including interactions with customers, but also, like you're saying, including advertisements. So for XXXY Athletics, an apparel company whose mission is to protect women's sports, it's critical for them to be able to acknowledge the real differences between the sexes, and to do this, they need to use language consistent with their mission. So it's their practice, like I said, to refer to males, including male athletes competing in women's sports, using male pronouns in their given names rather than using feminine pronouns. But under the law, someone can come after XXXY for doing this. And actually, anyone can file a complaint with the commission who believes they've been agreed. And the Attorney General and the commission themselves can also, in certain cases, of their own accord, bring actions against businesses like XXXY.
That's Suzanne Beecher with Alliance Defending Freedom. We're talking about the latest lawsuit against Colorado's radical transgender bill that's being led by XXXY Athletics, owned by Jennifer Say, storied career with brands like Levi Strauss. I want to get some clarity on this, because a lot of this civil rights law seems to be couched in the idea of going back to like the 40s, 50s, and 60s, where people were denied service because of their identity. In that case, it was race-based. So you can't stay at this hotel because you're black, or we're not going to let you eat at this restaurant because you're black. And what we've seen in Colorado is it's not that people like Jack Phillips, Lori Smith, or even XXXY are refusing to sell their services to people that are gay or trans or those types of things, but that the civil rights law has now been used in a way to force these businesses to basically embrace the state's belief on this. So with Jack Phillips, he didn't want to use his artistic talent to make a cake that violated his religious values. It had nothing to do with gay people. He's happy to sell gay people. It's just that he didn't do divorce cakes. He didn't do Halloween cakes. He didn't do lots of cakes that violated his conscience because he was an artist. In this case with XXXY, it's not that XXXY goes, check this box to tell us if you're trans or not because we won't sell you apparel. But you're now taking the law. The state, Colorado, is now taking the law to say, you XXXY have to embrace what we believe about transgenderism, or you will face the wrath of the state. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, so I think what you're pointing to is an incredibly important distinction. So XXXY athletics is open to serving anyone, but what the state is doing with this law is policing their speech and requiring them, or compelling them really, to speak the state's message in violation of their mission, which is to protect girls' sports and to support the idea that sex is binary and immutable. So for the state to make it illegal for them to speak consistently with their mission is a clear First Amendment violation. So like you're saying, that's very different than being unwilling to serve someone. This is about forcing XXXY to say something that they believe is a falsehood, and is the very falsehood that they're trying to combat.
I think the equivalent would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, and Bill, feel free to jump in here too. Okay, so the state goes, marriage is between one man and one woman. Let's say the state does that, right? It passes a law saying marriage is between one man and one woman. You, Rainbow Apparel Company, with your belief that marriage is not between one man and one woman, but can be between two men and two women, you are violating Colorado law. Therefore, we need to step in to stop you from even selling your apparel. I mean, would that be an equivalent?
I think that is a helpful parallel example. So, like you're saying, if the state takes a certain view, it can't force businesses or individuals to speak its message, and it also can't prevent them from speaking their own beliefs. For a healthy society, it's important to have debate, which requires people to be able to speak into both sides of issues. So if the state picks one side and then silences dissent, that is, that's an unhealthy society, and it's a violation of the rights, the free speech rights of the citizens.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show. You're listening to Suzanne Beecher, legal counsel for Alliance Defending Freedom. We are talking about lawsuit that's been filed by Jennifer Say, proprietor of XXXY Athletics. You've heard her here on the show before, and she is suing under some free speech restrictions that are outlined inside of the new transgender bill. That's where we are right now. And one of the things I want to outline is I appreciate where you and Jeff were just talking a moment ago, Suzanne, as I went through the XXXY website, and I couldn't find a single thing on the website anywhere that prevents someone that is trans from purchasing the products. And that's important, that regardless of anybody's gender identification, regardless if we agree or disagree with it, they are not prevented from purchasing the product. It may be unlikely for them to purchase some of the graphic tees and some of the messages, but they may like the athletic wear. They've got some plain athletic wear that could be used by someone that is transgender. They could really like it, regardless of what the political message is. But the state seems to be telling them under First Amendment that they can't express or advertise their particular product at all, with those messages. Now, we know the First Amendment allows speech that not only we agree with, but most importantly, that speech that we disagree with. So, now, Suzanne, I'm going to challenge you a little bit here. If you had to put on your hat and you had to work with the state of Colorado to defend the law, what do you think they're going to try to do to justify preventing Jennifer Say from advertising? And then outline to us why that fails just based on a simple First Amendment test. What do you think they're going to try to do?
Well, that's a great question. I, of course, would say the state does not have strong arguments, like you were saying earlier. This is directly about speech, and suppressing and compelling speech is a First Amendment violation. So I think what the state would point to is the potential for offense or for people to feel unwelcome, but the First Amendment doesn't allow speech to be censored because there's a potential for offense. Like you said, minority viewpoints that people disagree with are actually those that are critically protected by the First Amendment. So I think like in 303 Creative, like in the case of Jack Phillips and Masterpiece Cake Shops, this is another example of an illegal violation of the rights of our client, and it's suppressing the speech of XXXY and also trying to compel it, both of which are problems under the First Amendment.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't often get to the point of saying that the state is compelling speech, but I think you've got a really strong argument that the state is compelling speech on this level. And the idea being that if there is people out there that support the transgender community, and I am an ally of the transgender community in many ways, but what you have to respect is the idea that you can't then squash the speech or even the advertising of someone that disagrees with you, because that is going to happen, and that we have to respect each other enough. And what I would say to members of the transgender community and those that are their allies, if you want to embrace the freedom to be able to choose who you are, then you also have to embrace the freedom of other people to disagree with you, and sometimes that will include advertising on their businesses. We can talk about how and when that may cross a line based on personal attacks and other things that are saying, or threats of violence, but that's different than what's protected under the First Amendment. That I do this a lot on the show, that if you truly believe in the freedoms that we are given and the freedom of speech, and that you have the choice to have that gender identity, then you have to defend the choice of another company based on their advertisement, because freedom is not only for you because you enjoy it. That if you want to have freedom, you got to make the difficult choice to allow everybody to have that same freedom. This is going to be an interesting case, and I really appreciate the idea of going after the compelled speech inside of the advertising branch, because that's a little bit of a different animal than most times. This is going to be a really interesting case.
Can you help me understand where the line is as an attorney, Suzanne Beecher, with regards to harassment? When does speech that you may disagree with transfer over towards harassment?
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction to draw. So I think when you're looking at harassment, it's often going to be getting into more of an issue of conduct rather than pure speech. But here the law is very clear that certain things in any context needs to be communicating the government's message, not the message that's, in this case, XXXY or another business desires to communicate. So it's not talking about issues of harassment where like conduct will be involved and that's going to be part of it, or like the manner or the way that the speech is communicated. This is just censoring the message of the speech, and that's why it makes it a more clear-cut issue and more of a clear First Amendment problem.
Yeah, I raised that, and Bill, feel free to respond to this. But I mean, I raised that because so XXXY by itself is in opposition to this law. Like the name of the company is in opposition to this law, and so they can't even exist by their own name. But for instance, when I go down and talk to people that are protesters, and I do, Suzanne doesn't know this, but I do a lot of interviews out on the street with people that are anti-Trump protesters. They say a lot of things that I would find terrible, right? Like the idea that Christianity is a farce, or people that are MAGA are terrible, those types of things. So they have the freedom to make statements that I find offensive, but there's nothing I can really do about it. And I wouldn't put it in the realm of harassment either. They're down protesting. I went up and introduced them. It's not like they're showing up at my house and yelling that stuff. So we have to get more comfortable with the idea that people have passionate differences about things, and simply because they state something doesn't necessarily mean they're hateful or harassing you. I don't know. Do you want to give thoughts to that, Suzanne?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And you're pointing to an important fact in the point of the First Amendment, which is that protecting free speech for some people is in the best interest of everyone, because it's protecting their free speech when they're the ones who are on the other side of the government. So even though people sometimes may speak messages that we find offensive, by allowing them to speak those messages, we're supporting the First Amendment, which supports our right to then speak messages that other people may not like. And this is what's important for society to progress and to have these productive conversations that allow truth to hopefully win out in the end. And that's exactly what our client is trying to do and what we're trying to get Colorado and the courts to recognize as they're again going after the free speech rights of people in their state.
Yeah, now, I appreciate that. Was a great answer. Suzanne Beecher, she's with Alliance Defending Freedom Legal Counsel. We're talking about Jennifer Say, proprietor of XXXY Athletics, that's been here on the show, suing the state of Colorado over the new transgender rights bill. Now, Jeff, earlier on you talked about XXXY violating even the transgender rights bill just based on the name. I would actually disagree. I don't think that in the name of it, it necessarily violates that. And again, we're not going to go all science-y because there are subsets of the XX and SY, but they're all based on that. So while there is some gender dysphoria and some things that happen scientifically, but they are all subsets of those. So even transgender people do possess the chromosomes of XXXY. Right. So it's not necessarily, again, if someone that is transgender says that just based on the name of the company, they're insulting me, I would disagree with them.
Interesting.
I would say they're wrong about their assumptions and their interpretation. And you were talking about harassment earlier, and maybe Suzanne can correct me, but harassment, an easy way to think about it is you may stand outside my place of business and protest me. You can't prevent people from walking in, but you can stand there and you can exercise your free speech rights. But once you come into my business and start expressing those same things out loud inside my business, that's harassment. If I'm standing outside and I'm running a kiosk and I ask you to buy the t-shirt that celebrates John Elway and you say no, and I follow you down the street and I keep yelling at you and then doing that becomes harassment. I can offer something to you, you can reject the advertising, but once I continue to pressure you on it, then it does become harassment. So that's kind of the issue.
Jennifer, I want to ask you this. Where does this go? Have you heard from the state? Where have you filed the case? Is this going to be a decade-long battle like Jack Phillips faced?
Well, we certainly hope there will be a quicker resolution of this than what Jack Phillips dealt with. But this case was filed recently, so just about 2 weeks ago in the District Court of Colorado. And so we are asking the court to recognize that there's a First Amendment violation. In this case, you can never really predict the timeline for court cases. Litigation, as we saw with Jack, can be an extremely long process. But we're hopeful that, especially with the strong precedents like that in 303 Creative that came down from the Supreme Court, challenging a very similar speech restriction out of Colorado, and the Supreme Court in that case made clear that Colorado law violated the First Amendment. So we're hoping with that clear precedent in place that hopefully there will be a smoother and more swift resolution of this. But obviously we'll have to wait and see to some extent.
The attorneys that continue to deliver in protecting our constitutional rights here in Colorado, Alliance Defending Freedom, Suzanne Beecher, Legal Counsel. Visit adflegal.org, adflegal.org. Be sure to support and donate to the great people working at Alliance Defending Freedom, because they are working very hard to protect your constitutional rights here in Colorado. Suzanne, thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll continue. We got some cowboy poetry coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, Bill, now it's time we give the people what they want on a Friday afternoon or Friday late morning. We've got text messages coming in going, all right, it's time for Cowboy Poetry. Let's go.
Yes. They're like, I want to get my mosey on. Yes.
Get that mosey on.
Saunter.
They joining us live in studio. We always like to wrap the week with Jeff Hildebrandt and some cowboy poetry. You got one about a cowboy. He's a cowboy.
I do. He's a cowboy with 100 years of history that's nowhere near the mystery and romance on the Range the Movies show. He's like those who rode the Goodnight Trail, pushing cows from Texas to the rail when a cowboy's code was all you had to know. It's courage, strength, and loyalty, good humor, trust, and decency. And when he gave his word, he wouldn't fail. He's a man who'd face stampeding beeves, rough, rugged land, or cattle thieves, then swear there weren't much trouble on the trail. He's a cowboy. Vaquero blood pumps through his veins, and he's all that now remains of a breed of men whose handshakes sealed the deal. His Stetson's stained with honest sweat. His boots are scuffed. You can bet he ain't no urban cowboy. He's for real. He's not afraid of working hard out in the field or his own backyard, and he gives thanks to God for all his grace. The cowboy's code says lend a hand, and he does this every time he can. Thanks to him, the world's a better place, 'cause he's a cowboy.
Man.
Garth Brooks, eat your heart out.
Yeah. Jeez.
That is great there.
Yeah. There should be Garth Brooks on that. There should be some sort of, lonely guitar on that.
Do you get love letters sent to you? Like fan mail and stuff?
Probably only from Jeff.
From ladies. From ladies that are going, gosh, you swoon, you cowboy poet.
Maybe he gets hate mail from husbands going, do you have any idea the standard you are setting? Do you understand how often my wife is like, how come you can't be more like Jeff Hildebrandt?
I know. I'm similar to that. One time I was like, well, let's use ChatGPT. Can you send me some nice poetry for my wife? And it spits some stuff out, and so I sent it to her, and my wife just goes, who wrote that?
Oh, that's great. That is fantastic.
'Cause she knows my heart doesn't work in that way. All right, what else you got for us, Jeffrey?
I'm going to tell you. This is brand new. This is the first time anybody's heard it. I saw a phrase somewhere this week, and it just clicked in my brain, and I started thinking about it, and I worked on it, you'll probably tell, for only a couple of days. So if you want to make suggestions on improving it, write to Bill.
Yes, please.
But it's called Born in a Barn. Were you born in a barn? That was my dad's favorite saying when I'd come back inside after being out playing. The screen door swung wide and slammed on the siding, provoking my father and evoking that chiding. Years later, I'm struck by some artwork I see of an actual barn birth and its meaning for me. Jesus, born in a barn and laid in a manger where he was protected from all sorts of danger. Then later I read how he told of God's love, showed others God's mercy that flows from above. Like the manger, this message of faith saves believers from a forever fate spread by evil deceivers. Jesus, born in a barn, then he left open the door that leads into heaven. That's what he came for. It's the lesson I learned starting back as a kid. He got born in a barn, and I'm sure glad he did.
Oh,
love it.
That's really cool.
Not born in a barn, Dan Kaplis. Dan Kaplis Law. Dan, I've known for well over a decade. He's pro-life, pro-family, pro-faith, pro-America. He's right there with us on the issues, and he's delivered for the people of Colorado for the last 40 years of his life, helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes get justice. In fact, Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Kaplan Law is so trusted, he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplan Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's his phone number, 303-770-5551. 303-770-5551 or hit dankapluslaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS Law.com. We'll wrap with Jeff Hildebrandt and some more cowboy poetry. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
He's headbanging in the studio. Jeff Hildebrandt, our 710 KNUS Cowboy Poet Laureate, taking us into the weekend with some cowboy poetry. Sir, what do you got for us?
Well, he was riding alone on his strawberry roan, just looking for what he had lost, not noticing where he'd gone on that mare till she stopped where 2 roads were crossed. She made no decision 'cause the choice it was his, and he couldn't tell which way to go. So he looked to the sky with a tear in his eye, then got down off that pony real slow. He's at the crossroads. They say you live and learn, but he's at the crossroads and can't tell where to turn. Well, he dropped to his knees and asked the Lord, please, show me which is the proper direction. I get so confused knowing which road to choose. I need a divine course correction. He said, I try to be good, do the things that I should, but it just seems I'm getting depressed. I woke up today and thought God's moved away without leaving me his new address. He's at the crossroads, and he's feeling mighty low, 'cause at the crossroads, you're not sure where to go. Then this hand bowed his head and through tears to God said, show me how I can make a new start. And right there in the road, he unshouldered the load and the cloud that had covered his heart. And his story goes on that before very long, he felt peace like he never had known. His face had a smile, and in a short while, he got back on that strawberry roan. Now, his message is clear. When you're smothered by fear and you feel like your whole world is lost, God's waiting with love to show help from above. If at the crossroads, you look to the cross.
I love it. Great job, Jeffrey.
Yeah, fantastic.
Cowboys and Jesus, and you bring it all together.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
And we've all been in those crossroads.
Yippee-ki-yay.
You got a short
nice
one
reminder.
to finish with?
I do.
Yep.
I do. This is called, for all those who love to be out in the summer doing stuff, you know. One cloud in the blue sky, reminding me of a time gone by when I would lay in long, cool grass and watch cloud figures as they passed. Then lawnmowers fire up down the street, and I would jump up to my feet. Suddenly I made aware the reason I was even there was not to watch cloud figures pass, but get to work and cut that grass. There you go.
Oh, that's right. I cut that grass this weekend.
Yeah, especially after all the rain that we've gotten here.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you, Jeff Hildebrandt.
Hey, my pleasure.
You can purchase a lot of his poems at Amazon, right? Or do you have a dedicated website?
No.
No, JeffHildebrandt.com?
No. It's on Amazon. Little books, little price, and there are a number of
heart.
them.
Big heart.
Big heart.
And
View
big
from
messages.
the pew.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's spelled P-E-W, not the smell. It's
That is great.
Just search Jeff Hildebrandt on Amazon, and they can deliver it right to your door, because we don't know any local booksellers that are doing it. Otherwise, we
No.
can promo them. So,
No.
we'll talk about the big
reason
guy.
I went to Amazon, by the way, is because you
Yeah.
can't find poetry in bookstores anymore.
No.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so all these
Can't find bookstores anymore.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All
It's like
these,
what George Carlin said one time. He said, "Yeah, I walked into the bookstore and I asked the lady behind the counter where the self-help section is, and she said, if I told you, it would defeat the purpose." So,
yeah. All right.
Well, text messages coming in. Thank you, Cowboy.
yes, thank you.
They're saying.
I appreciate it.
Such a great way to end. It's such a great message, and the
is.
idea of those crossroads. And many of us, we don't know when we're going to find ourselves there, but it's a great message to remind yourself of what's important when you find yourself at that choice. Yeah. Choose wisely. Choose wisely.
That's right. Look up.
Bill,
Look up to God.
I have noticed you're at the crossroads nearly every morning.
Every single morning. Do you have any idea how much extra things I have to do in confession
We
because
did
of the
talk
show?
to a futurist. If you missed any of that, he told us what Bill's future is going to be.
Yeah, not good. And half the audience celebrated.
Go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. Have a wonderful weekend. You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are 710 KNUS.